Charles, it's a Sunday with Charles power ballad. Don't want to miss a thing. But Karmageddon is coming.
It is, at long last, at long last. I was watching our mutual friend last night, Janine.
Yes.
Her open was especially good. And moments ago, or several hours ago, the president tweeted out her open,
Wow.
which presages the heavy hurt dance coming for a lot of people who think that they've been slithering around down in the sub basement of the swamp and that they're going to avoid the radioactive treatment that's about to come their way.
Yeah.
And I really do think the stars have finally aligned in a way where the president will be able to deliver the tough message, and it's not tough love.
I heard him on Fox and Friends. He had called in and he was saying a lot of things that sounded very much like things that would be said on this program.
Right.
Remind us what he was talking about. He was saying that Bull Durham is...
Called him Bull Durham. Now, I wouldn't advise using that phrase, actually, because when you look into the history of Bull Durham, not such a nice guy.
Bull Durham, wasn't it a movie with Kevin Costner?
That was a baseball version, but that was a baseball movie, I think. But there was actually, I believe, a sheriff, Bull Durham, who was a pretty hard-knocking guy. But no, I think you and I, for good reason, and I think many of the viewers also for good reason, were wondering, hey, you got elected president of the United States, don't you walk in the first day and say, all right. All of you people who used to work for Obama, what the hell are you still doing here? You're out of here. And by the way, if you work for Bush, you're out of here too. I mean, what does it take so long to get all this stuff done? And I think part of it is that you're fighting a battle. I mean, I really don't like to go to Washington, D.C., and I have no interest in going there anytime soon. But once you get there, I imagine and I have heard this from some of my friends who had high-level jobs, you'll go and you'll have a meeting, maybe involving the president and other people, and you all sit around and say...
You show up in Washington, D.C., and I have a meeting with the president.
No, I'm just saying, if you're in government, in a high-level position, thinking you're going to get something done in the Transportation Department or the Treasury or whatever,
right.
You'll sit down, there's the president, there's you, your Secretary of the Treasury, and you've got your underlings, and you've got people, and you say, well, I think we're going to make a decision to defend the dollar or debase the dollar or whatever. We're going to make some important decision. And the president says, yeah, that sounds good. And the Secretary of the Treasury says, that sounds good. And then you have to go affect that decision using the bureaucracy. And the bureaucracy says fuck you guys. Who the hell do you think you are? You're only going to be here max for 4 years, 8 years, if you're the president, and we're going to be here forever. So I'm sympathetic to the fact that turning this gigantic set of bureaucracies around will take longer than any of us could possibly expect. But I really think the biggest obstacle to Donald Trump affecting the changes that he will soon affect are that they centrally involved Obama. And they also centrally involve powerful Republicans like the Bushes and others. And until he delivered for minority groups, which it appears he now has done, both for African Americans and Hispanics and Asians.
You mean, not Obama.
Not Obama, exactly. Until Trump had credibly, not just 1 month of lowered unemployment or one tax bill or one executive order, but until he credibly had done what others could not have done or did not do in decades. He does all that stuff within 3 years. People start looking at this and say, this is not a flash in the pan. This is not somebody that we can just brush aside. We've thrown everything at this guy for the Mueller hoax and now the Ukraine hoax and who knows what other hoaxes are still coming. And he just won't go away. And in fact, he goes from strength to strength. Well, this morning, I think it was this morning that Rasmussen, the Rasmussen outfit is a good polling outfit, and they revealed for the first time that Donald Trump has a 34% percentage approval amongst African American voters who are likely to vote. And now that statistic there should terrify and will terrify, and no doubt does terrify Democrats, because for many, many election cycles, the Republicans have never managed to get much above 10%.
Wow.
So to be up at 34%, I mean, that is massive in sitting here in November 2019, a full year before the election. So I think Donald Trump has had enough time to now to get a lot of stuff done. I think he certainly has been learning on the job, but he retains this ability to connect not simply with his base, but with people who are maybe afraid to admit they're part of the base, but just like the way he's jostling and disrupting and tearing apart a status quo that has really hurt so many Americans.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think this is a great set of moments here. We're I guess, what are we now, 8 days away from December 9th? Is that
Oh,
right?
yeah. Well, right. So that was it. He was, saying how, get ready.
Yeah,
This is going to happen.
Well, I've got that wrong. It's where are we today? We're
It's 2 weeks.
2 weeks,
it's November
That's right,
24th. We got Thanksgiving.
right. Yeah. And then a
Everybody
week.
can argue with their family on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, and then a week, and then and I think well before then, I mean, we had the spectacle of the leak out of CNN reporting that the Horowitz report, they've seen it, and it's just Comey won't be touched. It's just some minor underling, and like I'm not going to believe anything coming out from CNN.
Yeah.
But I'm sure as hell not going to believe that CNN has the inside scoop on the Horowitz report. I'm not going to believe that.
Believe that though.
Huh?
Why not?
Because I think that Horowitz is in there. Horowitz would have been just a footnote to American history had he not been Inspector General of the Justice Department at this moment in time.
Right.
And now he will live on through the history books. He's been doing this for a long time, and there are a lot of people on his team. I gather it's hundreds of people on the team, and it's his name on this report. It'll be known as the Horowitz report, and if it's total rubbish,
That's his legacy.
that's his legacy.
The legacy of rubbish.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, I'm the Inspector General of Rubbish and Sewage.
You talk about the Trail of Tears. You could have Horowitz, Legacy of Rubbish.
That's got a nice movie title.
Yeah, exactly. You could make a movie out of it. Yeah. Well, that's interesting, Charles. I mean, there's quite a lot going on. Everyone's anticipating the release of this report. Charles, we're back in action on the main live streaming YouTube channel.
Very well done.
Thank you very much. It's the Jason Goodman YouTube channel that people are familiar with, and it was a malicious strike from a social engineer that attempted to take out the channel, and we're going to be hearing some more about that in the coming days as they are not letting up. I do want to remind regular Crowdsource the Truth viewers, even if you only watch once a week to see Sunday with Charles, of course the show is presented free of charge to viewers. We want everybody to see this show, but I can't keep doing the show and can't sustain Crowdsource the Truth without your support. So if you're not yet a sponsor, today is a critical day, Charles, because what typically happens is in the beginning of the month, I don't know why, subscribership goes down. Credit cards get canceled, people, whatever happens. So it goes down. And then I spend a significant portion of each month getting back up to where we were the month prior. And today, we're just one subscriber short of where we left off in October. So if somebody is out there who's not yet a subscriber on patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, you can push us back right to the running to stand in place position of last month. So hopefully people will join us on patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth and subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. I know you have a lot to get to today, Charles. Where shall we go?
Well, why don't we jump into this cover slide?
Boom.
There we go. Unless we wanted, there was a This Just In. Which
yes. Let me bring that to the fore here. I saw that as I was preparing. Now, I'm getting ready for some pending software updates that have caused me to increase the resolution of the screen, and that coupled with the continual aging of my eye bones make it a little difficult to sometimes read this stuff. What have we got here, Charles?
All right, so this is very interesting. These are this is a production and a Freedom of Information Act request, or I guess FOIPA request, whatever that is. Communications between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, and from memory, if you go to page 24, there are 40 pages here.
Where's the page number?
It's on the top. When I do it on my computer, it's up.
Oh, you got to go up here, right?
Yeah. So I think
24?
24, I think.
Okay, here we are.
Yeah. Chairman Grassley Correspondence Ray Clinton email. This is March 15th, 2016. Clearly, Grassley has raised questions about this Clinton email. Here's Strzok and Page. And remember, Strzok was leading the so-called mid-year exam investigation of Hillary Clinton's email. And this is so far, all we have at this point is what the crooked elements, remaining elements in the FBI have decided to produce up to Judicial Watch. And I really think, if I were President of the United States, what I would be doing is I would unexpectedly show up with, I'd try to find lawyers who were on average 6'6" or taller.
James Comey?
But I mean, real tough law and order types, and I would show up unannounced at the FBI, and I would go right into Ray's office, and I'd say, enough of this bullshit and stalling.
Right.
I mean, it is crystal clear. You tell me that we have a team that was looking into Hillary Clinton's email, mishandling of email, and could reach a decision under that ass clown Comey that the Clinton team didn't have a motive that we needed to investigate for mishandling. They did not intentionally mishandle anything using a toilet bowl server system and unvetted devices exclusively while she didn't have an inspector general, while she was Secretary of State, and then hanging on to all that thing. No, she didn't have any motive at all. She was just trying to steal as much money as possible through the Clinton Foundation and didn't want the rest of the government to see. You tell me that the person who led that investigation while he was, paying some attention to his wife, but cheating on the wife with the mistress while the mistress was cheating on her husband.
Oh, Peter,
yes.
I'm still focusing on James Comey and his investigation into the mishandling of Star Wars Legos.
There you go. But you tell me that the only person who was available then to direct an investigation, warranted or not, into whether there were connections, illegal connections between Russia and the Trump theory. You tell me that the only person within the FBI you could pick to do the next investigation was the same Peter Strzok and his same mistress. And I'm telling you that the whole, the hundreds of people who must have known about what was going on there all need to be investigated in a very serious way. Because, you work in the small headquarters operation with a limited number of very senior people. I am sure that there are, pressing investigations they know about that maybe they're not screwing up. There's got to be at least one or two of them.
That. Yeah, I'm not sure.
But it's got to be a frat house or sorority house environment where everyone's cheating on everybody else's spouse and they're all flying around the world and having all this. I mean, I look at this and I say it is obvious in this crucial period, March 15th, 2016. This is when Bernie Sanders had a shot. Okay, he could have been and should have been, I would argue, the Democratic nominee.
Yeah.
And they were very clearly and are then trying to obstruct Grassley's investigation into what was really going on with the email, and more importantly, with Uma Abedin and her 4 jobs. During and after the Benghazi situation.
I contend there were 5.
Yeah, at least
Saudi
5.
intelligence.
Right. And so this stuff is now dribbling out, and all that Judicial Watch gets here is 40 pages, of which the first several pages are all
redacted.
Well, rubbish. They're just the kind of blanket stuff. And I think also it might be page 32 or 34. Some reference in here to the English. Yeah, it's right. It's right after this. It's after this report. Immediately after this report. It doesn't say English, but maybe it's 38 or something. No, let's see. So cyber folks are going to be here.
Who's going to be there?
Cyber
folks. So that sounds like CrowdStrike.
Well,
What are you talking about?
Yeah, so the issue here is that, well, these are comments where they're or concerning, and this is mid-year exam brief, concerning...
But why is this person who it's CC'd to redacted?
I don't know.
And what does CD stand for?
Counterintelligence Division.
So someone from the Counterintelligence Division has been redacted where Priestap, Strzok, Page, I guess, yeah, Moffat, these are all FBI people. Who are they redacting? That's quite interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. I mean, this needs to be gone over with a fine-tooth comb. But the point is, here you are, March 17th, 2016. Remember that Hillary Clinton and her people turned over, quote, all work, let's stay on this page for a second, all work-related emails were turned over December 5th, 2014 via Williams and Connolly lawyers, right? Now you're sitting...
Eric Holder. Oh, no.
No, David Kendall.
Kendall, right.
And I think there's a female lawyer, I forget her name now.
It's so hard to keep the crooked law firms straight, Charles.
Yeah, it's pretty easy, actually. Williams and Connolly, Perkins Coie, we could go on. But so here you are, and if you remember in the cycle later, in the October-November timeframe, when Comey had to sheepishly admit that they had found a laptop and they were going to use the FBI to search the laptop and figure out what was on it, that it supposedly had 650,000 emails.
But then they lost it, didn't they?
No, they were able to do that. The crack team was able, remember in October 27th or whatever it was, when Comey had to sheepishly announce, whoops, we're reopening the Clinton investigation. And then right before the election, about a week later, he said, well, our crack team at the FBI has looked at the 600 on crack team.
Yeah, they're smoking crack as they investigate.
Right. Had managed to look through 650,000 potential emails and conclude there was nothing incriminating then. But in this case, when the Clinton stuff is finally turned over December 5th, 2014, by March 17th, 2016, they haven't yet at the top learned what the hell was on these missing emails. What the hell were they doing? Right? It's just this kind of inconsistency. I like when I look at evidence to see things like this, where on the one hand you have, in 1 week you can vet 650,000 emails, and now on the other hand it takes whatever it would be, 18 months, and you don't know what's in the email. I mean, there's clearly something is wrong here.
Yeah.
Badly wrong. And this latest production, Fitton has been suing, and Judicial Watch have been suing and complaining and begging and demanding for this information. And we're sitting here now, and it's November 24th, 2019. He gets this in June of 2019. But, somebody needs to put the fear of whatever into these people at the FBI, especially this guy, Ray. This is an itinerary for an international trip.
But it's just all redacted.
Yeah. But where were they going? Chances are they were going to the UK as a guest. Yeah, here, keep going down here. You see this? Big news of the day. Beth, and I think that's Beth Wilkerson, who is a lawyer, and David Gregory, he bounced out of NBC, I think, anchor. It's her, he is her husband, okay. David Gregory and Beth Wilkerson. So anyway, what's going on with all this? We have had the original 60,000 emails. Beth said that none of the laptops we have had the original 60,000 emails. The two that did are the personal work laptops of Cheryl and Heather. So let's go ahead and destroy those after we bleach bit those.
What's all this redacted stuff?
Again, but here we are in the thick of it. This is, the primaries are hot at this point in time. Elsewhere in this set of emails, there's reference to transatlantic cables being accessed. And there, what I think they were doing is they were being too cute by half. They were saying, well, under U.S. law, we the FBI, can't demand that I'm just guessing now, demand that the telecom people give us this information about intra-U.S. communications without a wiretap. But on the other hand, we might be able to go to our cousins in the UK and have them do it, and then have them either give us a summary or give us enough information so we then know what we need to ask for, bypassing American law in the process. And I think that's the kind of stuff that these people have been doing, that folks in the U.S. security services, folks in the British security services, the Australian, the Canadian, maybe the Italian and other security services.
That's the 9 eyes.
And then I think there's the 13 eyes.
14 eyes,
whatever
40-something eyes.
Too many eyes. And that's what they've been doing. They've been saying, these national laws, these are interesting. What we'll do is we'll just suddenly, we'll go and create councils and regional groups and this and that. And these pesky little national laws won't apply to our councils.
Well, Charles, it causes me to wonder if the phrase, let's tap international cables or access international cables or whatever the phrase is that perhaps code for doing exactly that? Let's go contact the British people and get the information that we need. Like,
exactly.
This is done so commonly that you just say, hey.
Right, and the other thing that's interesting is the timing. Remember, we're told that Crossfire Hurricane didn't happen until, May, June timeframe. Here we're in March. We have references in these emails to international trips that seem to me, as a guest, to be to the UK. The UK cannot, and there's also reference, I think, to in here, and our friends from the UK we've had on and who watch this will want to look through the stuff carefully. I think the name is Wilkinson, not Wilkerson, but Wilkinson at the very beginning. There's reference to that, and I seem to remember that there's somebody like that at either GCHQ or MI6. So, you can be very sure the stuff that the swamp gives up in these requests in the beginning is the least damaging stuff, and they wait until they have the cover of many months passing or years passing, because then when they release the damaging information, they can say, well,
what
this is
difference
old.
At this point does it make anyway?
Yeah, this is old news, and we've covered this before. This is settled science, and all the other arguments that we can use for the surface level watchers. But anyway, that was a significant thing that I just happened to notice. Somebody, thank you, I won't say the name, but somebody on Twitter sent it to me, and I appreciate that. After we finished the slides, so I thought I'd put it in as this just in.
There it was.
So the other thing I would say, and it's interesting now having spent so much time in this and having had the chance to look through so many government reports, you and I, Jason, don't have the benefit that the government people and the equivalent of the internal affairs type operations at the various government agencies. They're going to be able to look at all the files that they're on the case, the Clinton case and related cases, and say, hang on, this is missing, or that's missing, or this looks like it's doctored, or where's this report that we don't see, or how come you've done it in this way, why aren't there signatures, and all the kinds of stuff that I don't know because I'm not a government employee. I just look at what's in the public domain, and I try to apply the common sense factor to it.
Now you're talking crazy, Charles.
I know, which is like, you don't go through all this kind of stuff because you're just flat out incompetent. You do this because you're trying to cover something up that's worse that we don't yet know about. And I think the crimes we do know about that have been committed and are being committed in the name of these presidential and prime ministerial foundations are so big. They're obvious laundromats, they're obvious cesspools, they're obvious ways to get money to people who need money in the guise of turning, you can't go into the UK Treasury, I don't think, or US Treasury and say, excuse me, Mr. Secretary Mnuchin, I need to pay a $10 million bribe to Mitt Romney over here to get him to shut the F up. So can you please give me the form to do that? So what do I put down? Should I call it incentive
miscellaneous,
fee, out-of-pocket expenses, continuing education, charitable contribution, we'll call it. Why do we do that? We'll make a contribution to the McCain Foundation, or if there is a Romney Foundation, or whatever.
I gave $25 to, what was that thing that Ashton Kutcher had? It was called like Twat or something like that.
Easy. This is a family show.
I forget what he called it, but it was some abbreviation. It wasn't called that. It was called like Trust or Thrust or Thwart or something. It was supposed to fight.
Oh yeah, it was something to fight human trafficking.
Thorn. It was called Thorn.
There you go.
And they gave $25 to that, and then I found out it was part of the John McCain Foundation, and I was like,
really?
Yes.
That's not good. Not good.
If it was more than $25, I would chase it, but
Yeah. So
how is what I just said worse than the things that you said?
no. But, Anyway, you didn't say anything all that bad. But in this case, so we've been covering it for almost 5 years. We know about the rough scale of the charity solicitation fraud. We know about the rough scale of the political corruption. What we don't know is the degree to which politicians and law firms and the swamp manipulated the system, obstructed the system, caused false and misleading Federal Election Commission reports to go in for their campaigns, caused false 990s and their equivalent private foundation. We don't know how many lawyers were involved, and we don't know how many law firms may have actually been involved so much between what they were doing themselves to curry favor with Democrats and what they were doing on behalf of their various clients, that they could not mount credibly a defense of, oh, we didn't know. You know, this was one bad apple, one low-level accounts clerk.
Tiger.
Yeah, accounts clerk. You know, did this, and we everything was on the up. They can't do that, I don't think. And we're now at a place, the way Trump has set this up with his Bull Durham and others, and the undercover Huber, and many other U.S. attorneys.
I think undercover Huber is just a Twitter guy.
I know, but the IRS and others. They've been working at this for so long. We can't say, you know, when they finally surface with this Inspector General report, it can't be, you know, like the Hillary Clinton "What Happened."
Nothing happened.
Like the Hillary Clinton "What Happened" book.
It's all good.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah, Christmas is coming. Can we catch up after I go skiing? Yeah. No, I mean, there has to be some real meat on this bone. And what this is going to show is that leaders in both political parties, functionaries in both political parties, were only too happy to continue letting the band play on, the corrupt band play on. Especially so under, you know, Bush, who let's just refer to him as a light touch president, not particularly all that in touch with what actually was happening in the country.
Apparently, he's a good barbecuer.
Yeah. And then Obama. I mean, this long period, 16 years. Coming on the heels of 8 years of Clinton and 4 years of H.W. Bush is actually technically a generation. A generation is typically 30 years in modern times. So we've had 30 years of this crap, and we've had a president and his team willing to take the incoming to figure out what was really going on. And I hope we're about to find, you know, barring aliens landing next week or World War III happening next week, in the next 2 weeks, we should actually get very close to seeing the truth here, to confirming with our own two eyes just how bad the truth is. And I don't know, Jason, if you remember the movie Network. Did you see that one?
He's mad as hell and he's not going to take it, Charles.
And it's really, you're seeing that across the world now. You see it in Bolivia, you're seeing it in Hong Kong, you're seeing it in multiple countries in the Middle East. You're starting to see it in multiple cities and states around this country. You're certainly starting to see it even in places like Sweden and European countries, Norway now. People are sick and tired of this crap.
What'd you think of that guy, what was his name, Holmes, David Holmes, who referred to ASAP Rocky as ASAP Rocky? It's like, dude, you are the whitest guy in Washington, D.C.
You're whiter than Buttigieg.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. ASAP Rocky.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah. Not an impressive group that testified, not at all.
No.
So with that, we could probably just...
Now, but real quickly, Charles, along the lines of what you were saying about the possibility of aliens landing, I have heard that Adam Schiff is contemplating peeling back his skin and revealing his reptilian whatever, if all else fails. So,
I mean, that collection of people, you know, it's like you see these people, and I'm probably guilty of it too, you know, if you live alone and no one can say to you before you go out the front door, you do look fat in that pantsuit. You walk out in a pantsuit that's 3 sizes too small for yourself. And I mean, I think in the case of Adam Schiff, the collection of people both working on that project, advising that project, testifying before him, are so far in the deep end without those little swimming things they need to stay afloat.
The noodle.
the noodle, the pool noodle. I mean, now when we get a real trial, which either we're going to get a whimper, a nothing, which I think Trump won't settle for that. He'll probably say, no, I want a trial. You can't have one. I want one. You know, we have to understand what Schiff was really up to. We have to learn who the witnesses were who were not allowed to testify and who made those decisions. We have to get to the bottom of who this whistleblower is. We're not going to mention the person's name for fear of retribution, but and there's
we need whistleblower protection for blowing the whistle on the whistleblower.
That's true. But for your new viewers, and I'm sure you have every day some new viewers.
We're approaching 86,000, Charles.
That's very good. That's really very good. And plus another, 14 or so on the second?
12 and a half on Crowdsource The Truth 2. And thank you for bringing that up, Charles. You know, YouTube, in its wisdom, has just introduced a new feature, I think, that maybe is intended to make them money, but people could try it out. They had Super Chat previously, which allowed people who were watching on, now this is interesting, why is it, oh, I guess I don't have it playing. The Super Chat previously allowed people who wanted to pay some money into the chat to use this little icon down here. It's now become Super Stickers, which we haven't tried out yet, but people can click on that Super Sticker little hut. I don't know what that's supposed to represent, but apparently you'll get some kind of sticker that you can put into the chat. So that'll be interesting to see if anybody tries that out.
Good.
Yeah. But anyway.
So this is an approach, this show, that is certainly different than the mainstream media. And I don't know that I put anything up on, I think I tweeted it out, that moments ago, Mike Bloomberg did officially announce that he is entering the race. And the wizards at Bloomberg, and I have to say, you know, they treat me very nicely. I was just at a fancy conference, free of charge, last week. It was actually pretty well done. But these nutcases who are running the news side of Bloomberg said, you know, what we're going to do, you know, and they thought this was really smart. What we're going to do is we're not going to cover Mike, and we're also not going to cover any Democrat. Now, you take a step back. What do you say? You're now officially announcing as Bloomberg News that you're going to subsidize the Democratic primary contest by not allowing these thousands of journalists spread over, you know, hundreds of bureaus around the world to do the most important job they could be doing now when it comes to thinking about a presidential contest, and that is to vet all of the people, Trump included, but you know, who might be running in primaries in 2020. Instead, what you're going to do is that we are officially going to subsidize the Democratic Party by not doing any serious questioning of any Democrat, including Mike. It's absurd.
Yeah.
And you know, it just merely confirms how
That
biased
they're not
Bloomberg
news.
already was, and the fact that it's not a news organization.
Yeah.
And honestly, and I don't subscribe to the Bloomberg channel, I would immediately terminate my subscription, just learning that, because it's rubbish, right? And so why should I spend $20,000 a year to get information you really don't need at this point? I mean, if you're an investor, there's so much information out there for free on multiple different services that you don't really get that much extra out of a Bloomberg terminal. And beyond that, all of your
compared to when it was new and it was like
pre-internet.
pre-internet.
Very few, exactly, when very few people used it. I mean, at this, you know, as you age, you develop biases of things you've liked. You've looked at this company before. You're never going to invest in GE, no matter what GE says. You know, that's me. You get to a point where you don't really need to spend $20,000 a year on yet another subscription service to help you think about a portfolio you've already put together in the first place. You just don't need to do it. And that was a very silly idea of the Bloomberg News people to instantly say, you know what, because Mike, who owns Bloomberg and pays our bills, is running, you know, because we want to be objective and fair-minded, we're not going to cover this. Because, you know, there might be a problem, in which case we'd have to expose it and then we get fired.
Right. Charles, GE continues to inch its way up. I mean, it's still in the toilet. Mike F. is hitting the super chat.
No,
thank you, Mike. From England, using pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's even better than dollars.
That's great. Thank you.
But GE is 11.55, Charles. When's it? It's like, it won't die.
Well, again, I know this parrot is not dead; it's just resting. I mean, it's when you get into my analysis of GE, you've got to remember that I made the recommendation August 31st, 2007, which is a number of years ago, and at that point, GE was $40 a share. And generally, when I invest in stocks, I'd like them to go up in value. So
that's radical.
You know, I mean, that's because I don't work in government. In government, it's just like I throw money at stocks.
You got a hammer for $5,000.
Of course, yeah,
Toilet seat.
Yeah, that's right. That'll be 40,000. So you will see, obviously, GE stock is going to go up and down every day. But the real point here is, when we're getting off subject a little bit here, when I invest in companies, I like to decide at the outset: is this a risk that I want? Are there risks inherent in this investment that I'm prepared to take, or are there risks inherent in the investment that I don't want to take? And one of them is investing in a grab bag of toxic waste, which is what I think you're doing when you buy this stock, because there's so many contingent liabilities. They're impossible. They were impossible to evaluate for the smart firm that came in and demanded to have directors on the board and sat on the board for a number of years before they were blindsided, even with access to all the inside information, so company information. So it could go up, but it's simply not a risk I will take.
You know, I know we're not a business show, Charles, but people are now telling me that Bitcoin is tanking again. So, I mean, this seems to be a very manipulated asset.
Yeah, there's so many assets I do understand, and that I don't really need to spend a tremendous amount of time trying to understand an asset which is this volatile, and to me seems so subject to manipulation. And beyond that, anytime you meet folks, remember recently in my Harvard Business School reunion dinner or whatever it was, there was big party for the new dean last year, and
the roll monster.
No, it's a different guy. And it was over at that what's that fancy Italian place on 42nd Street?
Carmine's?
No,
it's not a fancy.
It's very fancy. It's in a former bank building.
I'm sure I don't know.
Name will come to me. It's a very fancy restaurant. And so we're there. There's a lot of people, which I don't like to see that. Harvard Business School is supposed to be a charity, asking for money. Why are you throwing a very fancy party with top shelf liquor and all that? Anyway, so some guy came up to me and said, I know you. Don't I know you from such and such? And I looked at him. I said, no. He said, well, what do you do? And I think I said to him first.
Oh, Cipriani, exactly.
I said to him first, what do you do? He said, well, I'm raising a hedge fund to invest in cryptocurrencies. The guy said, what do you do? I said, well, I specialize in exposing complex financial frauds. It's like Speedy Gonzalez. I never saw the guy.
I gotta go. That's my boss calling.
That's right. I got a thing.
Yeah. You ever see the movie Dial M for Murder, where the murder gets all screwed up and the guy's like trying to improvise the alibi? He's like,
Anyway, let's get back into the
yes, we're kidding a bit much here, Charles.
Into the flow, because there's a lot to talk about here.
Yes.
So, this is a show that's different than the standard show. That we do our level best to give folks a chance to see the evidence that we consider to be important. We try to direct you. We provide links. We provide these slides in almost every show that we've done since about September or thereabouts 2017. There is a presentation like this. It tends to have slides and links. There's a lot more information that you can go over at your leisure. I do get comments from people who say they enjoy this actually because they listen to it and then they go back and they go through the links and then they may watch the show again or they may watch it 2 or 3 times.
That's good.
And I'm glad to hear that, because what we're trying to do here is change the way people think about these issues that are being social engineered to the surface level crowd. We're trying to get you to dive beneath the surface and look at the facts and understand the foundation of our analysis. And I think if you don't have to go back and look at all 191 shows, which I think this is our 191st today. Missing one.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
We'll add that to the plate. See, now we're at this fever pitch of creating new shows. When people go to the Jason Goodman YouTube channel and look at the Sunday with Charles playlist, they're going to get access to all of the Sunday with Charles and the newly reinstated Charles Ortel is Closing In episodes. And we've recently taken Charles to helping people figure out how they can access the slides when they go into the presentation. And I've been doing some things to try to control the temperature on the computer so it will perform a little bit better. But when you click on any video, in the description box here, if you click Show More, you're going to get access to all the sponsorship links and this thing that always says, download Charles's presentation. Click on that, and it's going to take you right to the PDF document. This little icon here allows you to download it to your own computer, and you can print it, you can read it, you can follow along, whatever suits you.
Yeah, and we've tried to, we've followed a practice of, once we experimented with various types of ways of doing it, of trying to make each presentation follow a similar format. And so today we have quite a lot to go through before we get to the actual meat. If you have comments for us, you can reach me through my website. You can reach Jason and me through our respective Twitter handles. I gather we're both inching towards more and more viewers or followers.
Twitter stardom.
Well, I don't know about stardom, but more and more.
People can follow you at Charles Ortel on Twitter. Charles is a prolific tweeter, constantly tweeting interesting articles. I hope that people will follow CS The Truth on Twitter. Definitely, it's going up. I've discovered, Charles, that just reading tweets from you and Mike Moore and Dr. Corsi, and then insulting whoever it is that you're tweeting about, like Adam Schiff or Hillary Clinton, a lot of people are following me for that, so I've been doing that. It's working well.
Yeah, well, when I have downtime, I try to actually go over my Twitter feed pretty carefully. And I'm very grateful to those of you who do tweet suggestions to me, because it's quite helpful. And I also appreciate corrections. I get those from time to time, and they're very helpful.
That was the computer equivalent of being on a train where another train starts moving, and you're like, wait a minute. Because it was a video playing a video of our current video, and I got lost for a minute.
That's right. Well, you're back.
I'm back.
So let's go through this. This first piece is really epic. John Solomon has been over the target, I think, here of the deep state for some time, and the deep state has decided to make him a target. So they've taken to criticizing him at Hill. He left the Hill. I think some of it started when Doyle and Moynihan were going to testify before Congress. He wrote a piece about that, and he mentioned me. And because he knows me, we know one another, and apparently the Clinton Foundation complained about me and what I was saying, and tried to make the case that because I was spending so much time doing interviews around the world, but in particular with multiple Russian media outlets, that therefore, that's the kiss of death, right? Yeah. Death, right? I'm doing interviews. I mean, it's not because I spent any time with the swampy mainstream press, who are, I think, irresponsible and have been irresponsible for certainly years, if not decades, in the way they report. Anyway, he got criticized for by this Vindman, this Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman.
I don't care for that guy.
I don't like him at all. But Vindman had the nerve to go on air and say that basically every element of John Solomon's reporting
was false.
Except
for the grammar. And according to him, Mr. Vindman.
Right.
Mr. Vindman.
That would be Lieutenant
Mr. Vindman. Yeah. If I was Devin Nunes, I would have said, okay, Sasso. Everybody calls you Vindman. But apparently, according to Vindman, he speaks a little bit of English.
That's right. Just amazing. So if we go into the original article up here,
yes,
you can see that actually Solomon, it's his own approach, but he takes the 28 elements of his story and basically says, every element of my story is correct, and here's why for each element. If this goes on and on and on.
It's just hit me. this dude looks like Eric Cartman. He's like, screw you guys, I'm going home. I don't like this guy at all. I mean, I don't know anything about the military, but I think as soon as I saw this guy saying he was going to testify, it just occurred to me that, like, isn't that a court-martial type thing? Like, aren't you supposed to not say anything about what the leaders of the Army say if you're in the Army?
I don't know. Well, I take it a step backwards to say, you know, if we want to way step backwards, my understanding is that the leaders of the former Soviet Union were assured by the American government that our policy, once the Soviet Union blew up, would not be to aggressively extend our alliances and our influence into Eastern Europe and into the countries of the former Soviet Union. That was the assurance that, in theory, we gave, more than just like a casual assurance. And today, scroll forward to 2019. Now we have this lieutenant colonel, you know, lecturing us. We don't understand, Lieutenant. We don't understand America's policy regarding Ukraine, says a man who was born in the Ukraine, who is somehow working in our military services, and who entertained discussions, multiple discussions, about possibly leaving America to serve as the defense minister of Ukraine.
What?
Yeah, and it's like, what?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I'd be like, what the hell?
He's a spy.
I mean, it's just absurd that you have Shifty Schiff, that he would even allow these hearings to get to this place where you're relying on this idiot. And I say he's an idiot because if you're going to attack a reporter for getting a story entirely wrong, and then that reporter can say, all right, there are 28 elements to my argument. Here they are. Here's the evidence for each one of them. None of them are wrong. What say you, Lieutenant Colonel Vindman? I don't speak English anymore. Yeah. I'm back in Ukraine.
I'm done testifying.
You know, I mean, so really, hats off to John Solomon for his perseverance here. He was covering Ukraine matters long before the recent stint where Ukraine has come into focus. And I think now we're at a place, we've wasted so much time on the issue of Ukraine's a thing, Ukraine's an issue. We got to get to the bottom of what really happened at Maidan Square in February of 2014.
Right.
You know, it reminds me, I'm not an expert on shootings and things like that, but it's very eerily similar to the Las Vegas thing, where we don't really know who was firing the bullets that killed people in Maidan Square. And American history and European history is replete with examples of manufactured events that are designed to get wars started or battles going or whatever, where the supposed people who began the violence, in fact, were not the people who began the violence. There's staged violence to get people involved in making military commitments. So this whole idea that we would be wasting as much time as we have wasted in 2017 and forward, first on the Russia hoax, then on the Ukraine hoax, and that we'd be in a place where the people who engineered these hearings, you know, have such a strong case that they don't want you to know the identity of the person who's making the allegations. I mean, I made a decision both with GE and now later with the Clinton Foundation. People said, aren't you afraid if you criticize these people, they're going to come after you? I said, no, I'm not afraid.
Yeah.
You know, because what I'm saying is absolutely correct. I'm an American and I have a First Amendment right to speak my piece. And I'm going to do that, especially if I see rampant fraud. So hats off to John Solomon. May he continue to stay at it. And may he be vindicated soon.
Speaking of Maidan Square, are you aware, Charles, that there is a social engineering operation afoot to convince people that I had something to do with the uprising in Maidan Square?
Well, that's the whole reason we're doing these shows together. That's what I think. That's ridiculous.
Of course it's ridiculous, but this is what idiotic social engineers like to spread. They like to try to put it out first in social media, and their hope is that it will propagate into mainstream media. That's the way a lot of these hoax-type things originate, in my observation. They put out lots of false information. There's new channels coming up every day. They tie it to what's happening to Field McConnell and Abel Danger. Abel Danger actually participated in propagating this fraudulent information. So it's a big problem, this social engineering that's going on all over the place.
Well, I think they're just taking pages out of Hillary Clinton and the Bush family's book. I mean,
I agree.
Here, Hillary Clinton and the Clintons know that they can, that Hillary could stand up and say Tulsi Gabbard is a Russian agent, and the next thing you know, everyone in the world will say, yeah, of course she's a Russian agent. And then Tulsi gets her, back by wearing a pantsuit that looks pretty good. Anyway, in this next link, it displays the name of the whistleblower. So if you don't want to do that, don't pull it up. But there is a story here on Gateway Pundit that is worth reading carefully. We won't use the guy's name. But the essence here of this story, and I have no way at this point to check it, although I've had my experience with Gateway Pundit has been very positive, and I thank them actually for recently mentioning me positively in a story. But here they're arguing that the guy got caught making a false statement and then going on to create it. So the whole backstory of how this whistleblower came to light, we've covered ad nauseum in several podcasts recently, the fact that the law firm, in quotes, law firm, whistleblower.aid.org, and their illegal fundraiser to raise money basically to pay their fees, is a disaster. But I think there's no question, as we're about to get into it, that Barack Obama has much to lose here from the opening of the world's eyes, that what did he refer to as his presidency was scandal-free. I think is
so stupid.
I mean, history's going to look at this and say, the scandals were president-free. I mean, there's, there's like, but here the two of them are supposedly. Was this person put up by people around the Obamas or their hangers-on to instigate this as a distraction? Are they just simply trying to chew up the clock to bloody Donald Trump, to get him to a place where eventually one member of the motley crew of people who want to challenge Donald Trump in November of 2020 may be able to lay a hand on him by the election date next year? But certainly this kind of a picture and this guy's antecedents, I won't use his name, and the mess that we see of what we know so far about this latest escapade, these allegations on Ukraine, is so odoriferous that it has given the American members of the American public pause. And members of the American public, they can smell this. And they're looking at this and saying, we don't like this impeachment. We don't think it's fair. And upon reflection, the more we look at this, the more we see what Trump endures, and enduring all that, we like Trump more.
Yes.
So well done.
That's exactly what happened to me. I think it's well known that in my ignorance, I initially was liking Bernie Sanders, and it was only when all these allegations came out against Trump, and I was like, that's shocking, let me look into that. And I just found that each and every one of them was just totally false. And I was like, well, now wait a minute.
Yeah.
Quite funny how that happens.
Good. So Cheryl Atkinson, as usual,
Killing it.
Yeah, she really is fantastic human being and a very good reporter. And remember, this is somebody who was at home and she started hearing her computer going off, and apparently under the Obama administration, they were actually manipulating her computers, getting into her computer, and who knows what exactly.
She's proven it with forensic evidence.
Right. And that didn't happen. That may have also happened under Bush, but it certainly happened under Obama. And I just think the power that our government has already is so vast in comparison to an individual citizen's ability to do anything, even a billionaire's ability to do anything, that this period when technological tools became ever more powerful and intrusive, and when the Obama administration and our security agencies decided, it seems, to abuse those tools, is a period that needs to be studied very closely by all members of the American public. We pay for this government. Our children and grandchildren are going to be paying the debts of this government. We deserve to know what was going on as we enter a period where the tools are probably going to get even more powerful. I mean, people talk about artificial intelligence. Actually, what we have now is real lack of intelligence.
Yeah. Charles, I think this is a meaningful picture for us to contemplate for a moment. You had mentioned the Atlantic Council when you arrived before we went live, and what we're looking at here is a photograph from, I guess, 2008, right after Obama was elected, but before he took office. This is the office of the president-elect, and there we see Hillary and Jim Jones standing with Obama before he's even in office. So these are two people that were clearly in lockstep, if not carrying Obama from the beginning. And Jim Jones, people who missed my interview series with Patrick Berge, who is an Army IT specialist who served in Afghanistan and Iraq, spoke about how Jim Jones created a thing called the dark net, which was basically a tool used to monitor the population in those areas through social media, and that the technology in that is now owned by a private company that Jim Jones is the principal at. And you got Michael Hayden in that company, you got his son in that company. That's called Dynology, and they've created a product called ClearForce, which basically allows anyone to buy that software and have incredibly powerful tools for spying on anyone. So it's amazing how much nonsense we've been hearing about outdated things like the hammer, and how little we've been hearing about Jim Jones, his affiliation with the Atlantic Council, the Atlantic Council's affiliation with CrowdStrike, and all of this stuff having to do with Dynology and ClearForce. That seems much more relevant than the hammer and all of Mary Fanning and Dave Janda's lies about Dennis Montgomery.
Yeah, I think in this period here, we're going to be talking about it in a few minutes, is actually December 2008 as a guess. It could only be December 2008 because Hillary was not officially part of the president-elect's thing until the end of November, early December 2008. And then, of course, he became president on the 20th of January 2009. So this picture can be dated. If we can just go back into the slides, because we have a hell of a lot to cover here. It's okay. Now, there's another great piece in Zero Hedge, which is really needs to be read. You know, people who want to have debates with us, you and me, about Ukraine, need to know their history, and they need to know it way, way back into time. This is a two-part series. It's worth reading. I'm amazed that it only has one share. I mean, I simply don't believe that makes any sense. But it's not like, you know, Ukraine is New Jersey. I mean, Ukraine has got...
The pizza's way worse in Ukraine.
I know a good pizza place, actually, in Kiev. Really, it's pretty funny. The name of the restaurant is called The Mafia.
Oh.
It's really funny. They have like these caricatures of mafia people. It's very good pizza. But anyway, the point here is that when we go and we think about what was going on in Ukraine, people in both political parties, supporters of both political parties, and investors who support both parties, law firms who support both parties, saw in Ukraine a rich prize, in the sense that it is, right smack dab, right next to Germany, and right in the heart of Europe. It's the breadbasket for the former Soviet Union and for Russia. It's still, nowhere near its true potential. It has science, a history of metalworking and advanced science going back decades, and it's actually, parts of it are quite beautiful. But the point is that it's viewed within Russia as a central core ally of Russia for many, many reasons. And the simple-minded Americans who want to leap in there and say, oh, no, you don't understand. We decide, we're globalists. What Russia cares about, why should we matter what Russia cares about? They don't have any nuclear weapons. Oh, well, yeah, they do. They don't have a history of reacting very poorly when people, get very close to their motherland there and threaten them. They don't take decisive action against people in those situations. Yeah, they do. And so that article in Zero Hedge is a must-read for anybody who wants to have a serious point of view on what we should do going forward and whether this team, the Schiff-led team and the whistleblower, actually are doing anything good for the United States and for Ukraine, because I would submit that they're not. So
It's interesting that they give the name of the person writing it. They usually just say it's Tyler Durden.
Unless it's something that Tyler's drawing attention to something that somebody else wrote. That's yeah. So this is pretty funny. I don't know if it'll come up properly here, the Trump tweet. Yeah. I mean, here's Donald Trump. He obviously knows who the whistleblower is.
Yeah.
Right? And where is it written that you have a right to bring down the President of the United States anonymously? Or the right to bring down anybody anonymously?
Well, Schiff even said during the hearing that the whistleblower has the right to remain anonymous, but he doesn't. No one.
Yeah, in Schiff's apartment or house. I mean,
Right.
where Schiff's rules of order.
You specifically do not have the right to accuse someone of something anonymously because the person being accused has the right to face their accuser. That's the point.
I know. I mean, and this Schiff guy is like, I'm a lawyer. I'm a former prosecutor. Yeah, were you like last in your class or next to last in your class?
Harvard.
Did you go to
Juris
Harvard?
Doctorate from Harvard.
Really?
This is why I don't.
exactly.
I mean, I like the hat and everything, Charles, but that whole skull and bones thing has me looking cockeyed at Yale.
Oh man! All right, back into the slides. So, speaking of things that are not all that credible, Barr's statement recently that the Epstein's death was, quote, a perfect storm of screw-ups. I'm not buying that.
No, me neither. I was very disappointed to
Not
hear him say
buying that.
this.
You know, it's not. It'd be one thing if you said, "Well, he slipped on a banana peel, fell down the stairs, his head landed in a bucket that somehow had sulfuric acid in it and hadn't melted yet, and then the building blew up." It's just simply not credible. This is not any old prisoner. This is perhaps the highest profile prisoner in the federal
Since Lee
prison.
Harvey Oswald, who, by the way, also died in
Right.
police custody.
Right, exactly. So,
Whoops.
yeah, so I think this whole, I don't understand what would have motivated Barr to try this on for size just before the Inspector General Horowitz report comes out, but I, with great respect to Barr, hoping that Durham is doing good work and hoping that the Horowitz report at this stage will be good, I have to say I call bullshit on this conclusion.
Yeah, I mean, but this is sort of like seeing your wife out to dinner with another guy and be like, I'm sure it's totally innocent. You know, I mean, how can he say this and have us still... I don't have a lot of confidence in William Barr, Charles.
No, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. But, meanwhile, the English press is all over Epstein and Andrew
Oh,
and
yes.
Maxwell. And eventually we will... the next one.
Will he meet?
No, that one, yeah, that one.
Do you like how I've fixed the missing arrow problem?
Very well done.
Thank you.
So, yeah, this is a well-written piece basically saying, this is your chance, Barr. When this report comes back, and Durham as well, upon close reflection, I really like the tweets on James Comey's Twitter feed, and I think he's really just, he's masterful. I think he's a legal wizard. I mean, we don't appreciate his genius, Chris Matthews and Obama. We just, maybe we're not smart enough to see...
Did he say that?
About Obama, yeah, on Obamacare. Maybe we're just not smart enough to understand the genius of Obamacare.
Chris Matthews.
Yeah, man.
That is too
The
stupid.
Genius of Chris Matthews, one of the world's shortest books.
It's a pamphlet, Charles.
It's not even.
Yeah.
It's not even a cover.
So, I mean, I don't know. Do we think that Attorney General Barr, he stands athwart history?
And I hope that doesn't mean to thwart history.
Yeah, I have not heard that word before. Athwart.
Atop, it means.
I see.
But he's, the stars are aligning now, and again, it would take an extraordinary turn of events to derail the freight trains that I think are hurtling towards December 9th and afterwards. But Barr is not going to get the opportunity here to just say, well, I'm dialing it in, I got the flu, and I'll have my deputy handle it. Somebody is going to have to stand up here and tell the truth, fess up about what was going on, and then, given the magnitude of these crimes, hold the very powerful people accountable. Because if they don't do that, it's going to get a lot worse. Now,
I'm sorry, I was holding my breath while you said that, Charles.
All right, okay. If we go to the next slide here, this is really something, the way in which, this one here, next link. It's really something, the way in which Democrats are going after Tulsi. Now, I disagree with Tulsi Gabbard on many, many things. But, I mean, I think she's a woman.
I'd say.
I think she's one of these, the few accomplished women at a senior level in the Democratic Party. And you're going to do this to her now?
They're all the way in it already.
I know. I mean, Hillary Clinton's going to do this to a rival powerful woman and try to argue that she's a feminist? I mean, Hillary Clinton is literally old enough to be Tulsi Gabbard's mother.
Maybe even grandmother.
Seriously. And, I think we should, I disagree with, as I say, a lot of what Tulsi has to say. I agree with none of what Kamala Harris has to say. But I think Tulsi deserves to be heard. She should be on the debate stage. And it's absurd that Hillary Clinton, of all people, would be trotted out, would be, to take one of those things, Jason, that you can take.
Trotted as appropriate.
So she, doesn't like that in the middle of the speech, and held up to then attack somebody who is a serving member of the military, several terms, and is not a slave to the perpetual war machine the way Hillary Clinton is. That you would allow have Eric Farticus Swalwell attack Tulsi Gabbard. I mean, go and do that, but why Hillary Clinton would think it makes any sense to do that, and why the mainstream press would say, "Oh yeah, this is okay."
Wasn't it Buttigieg she was arguing with?
With everybody.
Like Buttigieg was like saying that she suggested that Buttigieg wanted to invade Mexico. It's actually not a crazy idea.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, she was referring to. See, one of the techniques that these social engineers do is if there's something that they don't want to talk about, they immediately spin it off of that into something ridiculous so that you're trying to counteract their ridiculous statement.
I know. That's just like cut them off. Yeah.
But I don't disagree with Trump's idea of if Mexico says, hey, we need some military help to fight the cartels, that makes a hell of a lot more sense than going and fighting in Libya or Syria. Mexico's right there. Drugs are coming into the United States. It's a danger to the people of the United States. Isn't that what the military is supposed to be for?
Yeah, but I mean, I guess in the...
Not invading Mexico, but if the president of Mexico said we have inadequate services, technology, intelligence, whatever, send us a unit to help the Mexican army fight the drug cartels, that would be a sensible thing in my mind.
Well, I think so, and I think that, as I wrote about in my 10-point plan, I mean, you cannot address the violence in Mexico and Central America without having an open discussion about the size of the market for drugs inside the United States of America. Or
without upsetting the CIA.
Right, exactly, right. So then this next one, we're going to get in the next one after it. May get in a little bit of trouble with this, but I stand by Patrick Halley, who runs this big league, or ran, I think, big league politics. This is yet another person.
Yes.
This caught my...
Pedo-pilot.
Yeah, yet another pilot, pedophile, crazy, hanging around with Bill Clinton. I mean, how does it work here? I mean, you have your own private plane. You have to fly private, and you say, the reason I need to fly private...
rape children.
Because I got to rape children, I got to throw people I don't want out of the back of the plane.
Exactly.
I've got to be able to leave on moment's notice when angry parents start coming after me.
But ASAP Rocky is smoking weed. They get mad at him for that.
Right. Yeah. and at a certain point, you say, like, you do judge somebody by their friends. And, here you have, who are some of his fast
Jeffrey
friends.
Epstein, this guy.
Weinstein,
Oh, boy.
you know, on and on and on and on and on. And then beyond that, you know, supposedly, recently you remember when Bill's latest birthday in August, Hillary posted some picture of Bill and, you know, tried to, with a text, trying to say, oh, he still looks magnificent. You know, come on. What wife puts up with this?
Yeah.
Right? There is no way that this is, that we know the whole story here, and there's no way that this is defensible. I mean, you have, remember all the comments about Trump initially? Well, his conduct is unbecoming that of a president.
Unseemly, Charles.
Really.
Child rape. That is Bill Clinton.
Yeah, or you know, getting a briefing on Bosnia, a double-barrel briefing on Bosnia from Monica Lewinsky. I mean, it's not. You know, these people just really. So part of me says I don't really want to know much of this, but the other part of me says at this stage, we have to know.
Yeah.
And you know why there are so many people like this in and around the Clinton orbit.
This is, I think, that weird bracelet he was wearing when I saw him at the bookstore.
Mm-hmm.
He's
probably made by one of his grandkids.
Yeah, it's like maybe that would be at least not weird, but it seems to be some kind of charm bracelet. So I don't know, very strange.
Anyway, so I saw this and I figured we ought to share it with the viewers, and then we're almost done. We can get into some of the latest and greatest stuff.
Those Father's Day #1 dad cards, Charles. Bill Clinton could get a birthday card that says #1 rapist.
Oh man,
gotta fit him in.
So yeah, Ginsburg, and obviously she's had a long life. Again, politically, I don't agree with her. I don't even think she's been that strong a Supreme Court justice. But I'll tell you this, Donald Trump, if this person goes or another person goes, but let's focus on her for a second, expect Donald Trump to nominate a woman and expect that woman to be sort of like Antonin Scalia in her views. And then expect heads
That's
to...
not a good-looking woman, Charles.
Well, but in terms of her legal discipline, right. It's a very good-looking woman. And expect heads to explode. You'll hear, wait a minute, the president, yes, he can appoint a Supreme Court justice, but he's not supposed to change the balance of the court. And,
he can do whatever he wants.
Exactly. That's why he was appointed, Nimrod.
Charles, Hytham G is communicating with us through Super Chat and says liberal Michael Moore is a total political hack. That's true.
That is true. That is true.
That's a good point there by Hytham G. Thank you for Super Chat. Yeah. And I don't know if we yet know what super whatever the new thing is.
Yeah. And then finally, this is an interesting story in Politico here, how Donald Trump has decided not to work so much from the Oval Office, but instead to work from the residence portion of the White House, which would make sense to me. The idea that you have all these people coming in and out of your office on short notice, I find that very distracting. In fact, when I was working, I got to a point where I was sick and tired of the phone always ringing, so I had it ring on my secretary's area, not in my room.
He got sick and tired of all the listening devices.
Right. But they're trying to make, anything he does that's different. Oh, that's a breach of past practice. He doesn't know what he's doing. And I think he does know what he's doing.
He's got to be settled in, right? I mean, he's 3 years into the job. It's not like he's somebody who has no experience dealing with complex organizations. I think he's kind of, making his way there. So we'll see. Good.
Well, so let's, we're going to go quickly. There are a lot of slides here, and we're going to take them, we're going to go through them in some degree of speed. But we have one common thread through all this is a large number of lawyers, many of whom seem crooked as hell to me. Now, when Michael Cohen was targeted, justifiably, the FBI and agents raided his multiple residences all at once. They did not respect attorney-client privilege. They just tore right through that. And Cohen, in the legal profession, is a small fish. Mm-hmm. In contrast, Williams & Connolly and Perkins Coie are two very large firms. Williams & Connolly, which features centrally in the Clinton Foundation fraud, putting the Clinton Foundation together fraudulently, allowing it to operate fraudulently, using Bob Barnett, a senior partner at Williams & Connolly, to monetize book deals, off-market book deals, and later, I don't know if he was involved in the speeches as well. Sure looks to me as if Williams & Connolly is engaging in practices that cross the line from just providing aggressive legal counsel into potentially areas of misconduct. And we're going to go through the
ethical breaches, perhaps.
Well, actually, there's something called the Code of Professional Conduct in the DC Bar, and I've got an excerpt from it below here. Same with Perkins Coie. And here you have Bob Bauer as the White House counsel until people had directed some lawyers to go out to Hawaii to come back with Obama's birth certificate.
Sorry, I've got Bob Barnett. Is it Bob Bauer?
There's two Bobs. On the first line there's Bob Barnett, and the next line there's Bob Bauer.
Oh, there you
at
go.
Perkins Coie.
I'm glad I asked.
Good. And so Bob Bauer was White House counsel for Obama, and the subject of Obama's birth certificate was raised by a number of people, including Donald Trump. And lawyers went out to Hawaii to retrieve this birth certificate, and they came back with an electronic version of it. And Bauer resigned immediately, within minutes of that development. And I think as a guess, if we ever find out, it's going to be, no, wait a minute, we didn't need to send anybody to Hawaii, which is a long trip, to come back with an electronic version of a birth certificate.
He also has a Juris Doctorate from Harvard and, Juris Doctorate from the University of Virginia, which I also don't trust.
Yeah. And this firm, Perkins Coie, is the same firm that employs Mark Elias, who is in charge of their government practice and was so centrally involved, as we'll find out, in my view, rigging the 2015-16 Democratic primaries and attempting to rig the 2016 election, in my view. So what are these rules of professional conduct? Now, the problem with the legal profession is unless you start doing Michael Cohen stuff, really breaking the law, it's self-regulating. And so you have the DC Bar consists of people who probably have lawyers in their firms who are regularly engaged in professional misconduct. So they're not going to make an issue of it. But just here are a few things. I put them in red. Notice the standard is you commit a criminal act that reflects adversely on the lawyer's honesty. So in other words, you can commit a criminal act that doesn't reflect.
That's okay.
That's all right.
Yeah.
But if it reflects adversely on their honesty, trustworthiness, or fitness as a lawyer, that's a problem.
Right.
Dishonesty, fraud, deceit, or misrepresentation, that's how the Clintons file all their foundation statements and I think all of their campaign statements. Engage in conduct that seriously interferes with the administration of justice, that is the Mueller persecution, that is the Schiff efforts now, that is the ongoing efforts to impede and obstruct investigations into the Clinton Foundation. State or imply an ability to influence a government agency or official, that's what the Clinton Foundation is.
Yeah.
Give money to the Clinton Foundation and we'll make sure you don't get prosecuted, or alternatively, if you give us a lot of money, we'll make sure you don't get prosecuted and we'll get you international government grants.
Yay.
So, with that sort of as background, in case you didn't know it, and again, I'm not a lawyer, but I can read, I'm a reader, and those are the rules. And you have a link to the DC Bar there if you want to check it for yourself. So we go to the next page. I don't know, Jason, if you had noticed this back in May of 2016. I had noticed it. I wasn't going to focus initially in 16 on the elective side of it too much. I wanted to stay focused on the Clinton Foundation fraud part of it, but now that we're going back to try to understand what was really going on. This is an article that appeared in Politico. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm trying to find sources here that are not, as Lionel likes to say, arguendo suspicious, because they appear at Fox or Breitbart or whatever. This is in Politico, which certainly is not a right-leaning publication.
I think Lionel is suspicious.
But this is published May 2nd, right about the time that I step it up and raise the ante talking about the Clinton Foundation being a fraud. But it goes into some considerable depth about there was a special Hillary Victory Fund. What is it with her and funds? Why does she still need money at this point? But anyway, they set this fund up in coordination with 32 state parties. In theory, it's to build the state parties in practice, it becomes a way of funneling money to Hillary Clinton.
Right.
And her efforts to become the first female president of the United States. So here's a piece that flags this suspicious set of practices as being known May 2nd, 2016. What are we investigating? We're investigating Trump and Russia. We're not investigating Hillary and breaking Federal Election Commission laws in May 2nd, 2016. No, we're not going to do that, because that would be, that's meddling and colluding to affect the outcome of an American election involving primarily Americans. We don't want to investigate that. We want to figure out whether there are any Russians or any aliens or any Plutonians or whatever getting involved in this, because we don't want the American public to understand just how crooked the Clintons are. And this was known May 2nd, 2016. So what did the Federal Election Commission do about this?
I think nothing.
Sweet fuck all.
Yeah. Nothing.
Right?
Yeah.
So then let's go to the next page.
But now, wait a minute. I just noticed this little item. Dinner at George Clooney's house?
Yeah, I mean, he's now a billionaire, I think. And
Yeah, from the sale of tequila, which was many times higher than what is regarded as the most valuable tequila brand, which was like a 100-year-old Mexican family-owned thing. George Clooney came out of nowhere and in 3 years built a brand, sold for $1 billion. Everybody seems to think that's a little bit unusual.
Well, again, that's this whole idea, the contemporary art world, the speech world, the book world. You want to pay somebody a bribe, and I'm not saying Clooney was bribed, but if you want to pay somebody a bribe, you don't wrap it up into a nice contract to bribe.
Right.
A commitment to action to bribe somebody in the Clinton Foundation. No, you overpay them for a speech. You hire the dumb son-in-law to be a hedge fund guy.
It was also many times greater than the previously highest celebrity endorsement. David Beckham was paid, I think, $180 million for a lifetime endorsement with Adidas, and $1 billion for this tequila brand. It seems really
high.
Out of whack.
Yeah, seems high.
Anyway.
But anyway, so we keep going. Here's another piece. Now this is really interesting. This again is in Politico, and there's a little bit more to this. I wanted to, there's a lot to this article. It's a Politico magazine article, so it's lengthy. And I wanted to have this typed up for the viewership so that they didn't, in case they wouldn't follow the link, that they'd at least go and look at this. This is something published the 2nd of November 2017. Mueller's hard at work on the fake Russia hoax thing. And here we have something that appears in Politico inside Hillary Clinton's secret takeover of the Democratic National Committee. And we're worried about Russians meddling in the election. Here is an article published by these insiders in Washington, D.C. And Donna Brazile, the former chair of the acting chair of the Democratic National Committee, publishes, of course, it's a book. We'll see how much she got paid for it. But she is talking about and saying that by September 7th, 2016, okay, this happens to be right around the date that my second Zero Hedge piece gets picked up, gets a lot of attention about Clinton Foundation fraud. The head of the Democratic Party replacing Debbie Wasserwoman Schultz. Do you have her up there?
Look at that hair.
Nice. The head of the Democratic Party knew on December 7th that Hillary Clinton had rigged the 2016 Democratic primaries. She knew that. And did she pick up the phone and say, hey, Bob Mueller, Weissman, all this stuff about what may be going on with Russia and Trump? We've got a far more serious problem. One candidate, Hillary Clinton, rigged the Democratic national primaries. And she's telling Bernie Sanders this on September 7th, and he's like, I'm going to campaign for her anyway, because if I don't, then Trump is going to bury me and my wife, and I won't get my third house. This just reeks to high heaven. It's not like George Bush wrote this book or Karl Rove wrote this. This Donna Brazile wrote this book.
So she said she found her proof and it broke her heart? What proof? About Bernie being screwed?
Yeah, that basically...
He doesn't seem so heartbroken over this.
And you look at this. It says here, Obama left the party $24 million in debt. This is in 2012. Okay, he destroyed, in the 2012 re-election campaign, the party was, had an economic motive to be corrupted because Obama had done such a horrible job replenishing the funds of the Democratic National Committee in 2012. So Hillary sweeps in and says, okay, well, you guys don't have any money. I know how to steal money, and I want to be president of the United States, so I'm going to, give the money that's required, and we'll have the optics of a set of primaries. That explains why she didn't campaign. She didn't need to campaign. She got cut in a sweetheart deal with the Democrats. She knew she was going to be the nominee, and she figured that she had the so-called blue wall, and she had enough electoral college votes in the key states that it would be, and the press behind her, that she was definitely going to win. So, this story that comes out in November 2nd, this is the media summary of the book that came out several days later. How come when we were thinking through the various and sundry reasons why people might have been unhappy with Hillary Clinton, why didn't anybody assume that there might be an honest person in the Democratic Party who's like, I see this. I don't want to see Hillary Clinton all for war, all for corruption. I don't want to see her be the presidential nominee and lose. I mean, these are powerful motives here that are found in this, right out here. And Mueller's off with Weissman and all these Clinton partisans, making sure that anybody who still supports Donald Trump in 2017, 18, and 19 is somebody who will have something to fear. I mean, we got to go back over this ground, and I'd be really interesting to see how much of this ground will be plowed by I.G. Horowitz, trying to understand in Durham, how this Russia hoax progressed, and more importantly, why nobody seriously investigated the Clintons, the Clinton Foundation, and all this corruption well before now.
I just accidentally blocked someone I was trying to respond to about a comment that George Clooney is a spy. So if that person is still watching, they can email me on truth@crowdsourcethetruth.org, and I'll unblock them. And Charles, the Mueller investigation that resulted in the most expensive nothing burger ever, people are starting to get their mugs. People who are sponsoring,
is that right? Good.
People who are sponsoring Crowdsource the Truth on patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth at $25 per month and higher are eligible for a mug. They can email me if they have any questions or become a sponsor.
Good. So if we just motor along, the balance here is there's several more pages. Well, if you go, did you skip one there?
6.
Yeah, so this is it. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, this is the page, and I start here in the beginning. Why didn't Ryan investigate this? He was the speaker in 2017.
He was working on the job at Fox.
Yeah. I mean, why didn't he do anything about this? It's obvious that there was a serious problem, and the Republicans controlled the House at this point. Anyway, go to the next page. And then we have, this is Gary Gensler, who actually was in my business school class, and way back when, 41 and 42 years ago, he was a decent guy. But this goes through the math of what they were really doing here. A tremendous amount of money went to the DNC and to ultimately the Hillary Clinton campaign that had been raised to beef up, with the intent of the money being raised to beef up the individual state campaign apparatuses, and that's not what they did. Does that sound familiar? Saying that you need money for one purpose, but using it to enrich the Clintons. They're going to do it in the campaigning, they're going to do it in the foundation. That's how they roll. At some point, somebody must ask, what the hell is it about the Clintons that causes them to need so much money? I mean,
hookers and blow ain't cheap, Charles.
Yeah, I know. Paying off people, I guess.
Right.
So, and then the final page of this article is next. It's just, here it says, the states kept less than half of 1% of $82 million from extravagant fundraisers for Hillary's campaign. They get less than 0.5% of 82 million. This sounds a lot to me like the Clinton Foundation. It's all, they have these stories about what they're going to do. People pay the tribute into the Clintons, and they pay the 82 million because they're probably going to get out of crimes involving 82 billion. And it makes, if you look at it through that lens, you say that makes a lot of sense. You'll give the Clintons in the Clinton Foundation $3 billion if it's a way for you to get back $300 billion.
Exactly.
You'll do that. I mean, crooks will do that.
Right.
So rather than distracting, as Schiff is doing, and the mainstream media is doing, we need to understand that Ukraine is one of America's staunchest allies. Just shut the fuck up about that. And, I don't want to hear anything about foreign policy. I want to understand where $6.5 trillion of our taxpayer money is going for government. What the hell are we doing with that money? And the central force gathering that money up, sucking that money up, burning that money is based in Washington, D.C. Rather than investigate Ukraine, we should be investigating Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Then we should turn to the question of, one of the things that really, as it were, struck me about the recent revelations from Judicial Watch is now we learn that Peter Strzok, the guy put in charge of investigating Hillary Clinton for mishandling classified information, is himself mishandling classified information, right? So it's very clear why he was selected. He was selected because the Clintons knew that, if he tried to play hardball with the Clintons would just say, Peter, about that crime you want to get me for, what do you think you were doing on your devices and other things with Lisa Page? And, so he was selected from the beginning because he was compromised. Right? And
and what about Adam Schiff? We've got a lot of people in the comments talking about how reports are saying that Adam Schiff went to Ed Buck's house numerous times, was pictured. There's a report last week in True Pundit that Schiff was pictured in some sort of Egyptian outfit, a sacrifice ritual or something, and we know that 2 people died at Ed Buck's house. He's in jail for that now.
Yeah, well,
Adam Schiff should be under investigation.
Yeah, absolutely. And but going back into this earlier period in the 16 timeframe, 16-17 timeframe, this issue of a legal predicate that you have to have a rationale to investigate. Who sat around? Who were the specific people who sat there and said, we do have a legal predicate to open Crossfire Hurricane? Who did that? Where are the memos?
Gotta be Comey, right?
Did anybody? Well, would be also, I think, it would be the Department of Justice, people, Loretta Lynch, people like that, in 16. Who are and before that? I mean, who were the people who decided that was right? Did anybody object? I should hope somebody said, no, wait a minute, we can't do that. And who brought this to the President of the United States? How many times? Who around the President of the United States said, yeah, well, that's fine, we'll investigate, political. Everyone's hewing and crying that Donald Trump would investigate the Bidens for corruption in Ukraine when today they've now dropped more evidence of just that, corruption in Ukraine.
Every day.
And it's an outrage for Donald Trump to think about investigating the Bidens for corruption in 2016. But it's A-OK for Barack Obama to sick the government on candidate Trump under a theory that, some cockamamie story out of a discredited Christopher Steele and his bunch that Donald Trump engaged in crazy behavior in a hotel room in Moscow that involved disrespecting Michelle and
No
Barack.
evidence has been
I know,
shown
it's
for
ridiculous.
that. It is ridiculous.
And again, the contrast, right? And so then, on the issue of affecting an election, we're talking, this activity is going to affect the election. We've got to worry about the election being compromised in 2020. When did Bob Mueller know that there was nothing to the Russian hoax stuff? Was it before he accepted the job? Or how many weeks after he accepted the job? How many months before the November 2018 midterm election did Bob Mueller know there was no substance whatsoever to this hoax, but yet allow the investigation to continue in a way that did influence the 2018 election?
Charles, Mike Moore of True Pundit tweeted this article that Joe Biden is warning Lindsey Graham that he's going to regret investigating him for his whole entire life, to which I pose the question, is Joe Biden announcing the pending suicide of Lindsey Graham or predicting this unprecedented and rapidly expanding scandal might also touch some well-known rhinos?
Yeah. It's Joe Biden's behavior. I mean, he's clearly, I mean, as Peter Ducey, I think, expertly trolled Biden, recently, a couple of days ago, asking Biden, so are you happy about being a grandfather again?
Oh.
But I mean, he's a bad father, I think. He's a bad grandfather, and he's not a godfather. So I mean, to make those kind of comments is absurd.
Yeah.
He said it's not the first time he's done it. He said he's going to beat Trump like a drum. He said he wanted to go back out in the back of the schoolyard and beat Trump up. Well, the guy's 77 years old.
He's not beating anything. His teeth are falling out without touching him.
Right, he doesn't even know where he is.
Out the eyes, nobody's even punched him yet. It's not good.
And so what I think, as I age and as I think about what's really going on in Washington, D.C., people will say, well, the IRS is tough, the SEC is tough, the Department of Justice is tough, the FBI is tough. What if the real game here is to give the appearance that we have a justice system that is actually out to catch criminals, when in fact what the justice system may be doing is to protect people who are monetizing their government service or are willing to pay off people in government service so that they don't get caught. And that, to me, sad to say,
seems to be the case.
That seems to be the case. The SEC should have caught General Electric 20 years ago. The IRS and the Justice Department should have caught the Clinton Foundation in 1997. Barack Obama Foundation should never have been allowed to get started. And we're going to get into that in a second. And this is really a rhetorical question. We cannot trust the political class. It's clear from watching the Schiff hearings and the reaction to them. You'd have these witnesses would say one thing, instantly CNN would analyze it, and a whole bunch of talking heads, of course, drawn from the Bush administration and the Obama administration, so you could say it's bipartisan,
right.
To bipartisan acclaim, for these witnesses in this epic and historically important, seminal proceeding that will lead to the appropriate downfall of Donald. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Bipartisan criminals.
Yeah. So I want to go over with this as background. I want to fly through these next few slides here.
Next page.
Yes, please. Okay. Understand that the Clinton Global Initiative is a massive fraud. It has never been anything other than an excuse to hold a closed-door meeting attended by media people and business people and politicians and world leaders who need money to concoct schemes that sound interesting.
Now, wait a minute. Are you sure? Could you flesh this out a little bit, Charles?
Well, we've done this a little bit before.
I know.
Yeah. So this description, this is from an actual, this is, I think, from their website. This is a summary. Actually, yeah, I would love you to hit this for a second. I think this is the report, I think, on their site of their 2016 annual meeting.
It came out over here for some reason.
Is that it? Or maybe I didn't. Oh no, I'm sorry. This is the link to the. We can pull this one down. I thought this was something different.
Not interesting.
Yeah, we have it on another page. But this description, as we've talked about it before, when you make as an individual, when you make a pledge to a charity, you can't deduct a pledge. You can deduct only cash or security.
What's the difference? What's a pledge?
A pledge is you just sign a piece of paper saying that, if the Spirit moves me in future, I'm going to give you the money. But when you ask, you can deduct, if you're an individual, you give an asset to a charity, you give cash to a charity, you give securities to a charity.
What's the point of the pledge?
Just so you can say, Jason Goodman is so wealthy that he's pledged $100 million, and then the virtue signalers, the people who love virtue signaling, say, Jason Goodman, he's going to give $100 million away to the Clinton Global Initiative?
Why not just give it?
Because in the case, for example, of Thomas Hunter, he gives at one of the first Clinton Global Initiatives, he said, I'm going to give $100 million to the Clinton Global Initiative. And, the Queen wakes up, sober, wakes up eventually and says, darling, is that true? That one of our subjects is going to give $100 million to the Clintons?
Queen of England?
Yeah, and knighted him. So that's really fantastic. So he says he's going to do it, and she says, that's amazing. Let's knight him. So they knight him. And only he doesn't have $100 million.
Wow.
And so then the market crashes. He's like, wow, I'm Sir Tom Hunter without the 100. What do I do?
Uh-oh.
So, But
It's about 100 light.
that's right. Sir, light.
I'm a little short this week.
Sir Mix-a-Lot.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the Clintons come up with this art form of, it's not a pledge, it's something less than that. It's a commitment.
It's a lemon pledge.
It's a commitment to action, which is like, that's a step before you make a pledge.
Yeah.
And all this rubbish about, I mean, imagine with a straight face saying, since 2005, just 3,600 commitments to action have improved the lives of 435 million people in more than 180 countries. So what do you have against the 20 other countries? And how could this is, on the face of it, it's just boldly bullshit, right? Why? There is no legal entity called the Clinton Global Initiative. They started this just the way you're going to find out if Barack Obama started his foundation on the 15th of November 2004, well before there was any legal entity, and at a time when the Clinton Foundation had no authority whatsoever to conduct the Clinton Global Initiative. They get the domain name, clintonglobalinitiative.org, and they use that name. We don't know yet for what. We don't know how much money may have flowed towards the Clinton Foundation via this site. We don't yet know, but one thing we do know is that there was no Clinton Global Initiative, and we also know that for 2005, 6, 7, and 8, you can follow the links yourselves. Let's not pull them down now because it'll take too much time. In the underlying report to the IRS for the Clinton Foundation, extensive activities are described of the Clinton Global Initiative, even though it doesn't exist. And only in the 9th of August 2010 does an application go into the IRS for something new called the Clinton Global Initiative, Inc. And that application falsely states, we're not a successor to any previous activities. So you look at this is a gab fest held initially once a year in New York. Then they branched out in 2008. We'll find out that they did, we talked about it in the past, after Barack Obama was elected, but before he was inaugurated in December of 2008, the Clinton Global Initiative decided that they'd have an international gathering of fraudsters in China.
Oh.
What could go wrong with that? I mean, China wasn't trying to steal any intellectual property from the United States.
Is that where Chelsea got hacked, LOL?
It could be, So you just look at this and remember, when we start talking now about the various activities, Clinton Global Initiative is a fraud. It's a fraud because it was not organized or operated lawfully. It does not exist. And yet it took in so much money. We just don't even know at this point how much money because they've never reported it.
Wow.
Right? So if you're in search of a fraud, you found it. So
look a little further.
Yeah. So if we go to the next page. All right. We're not going to pull up many of these links, but this is reviewing the period January 10th, 2016 through October 3rd, 2016. Why is this period relevant? This is a period when, at the beginning of it, Bernie Sanders really had a fighting chance. And I
seemed like he was going to win.
Exactly. He was going to win the nomination. The energy was with Bernie. The force was with Bernie. And he got snookered, and he didn't complain about it. He just took it, and Democrats lost bigly. But if we follow this timeline, just picking on a few important points, it was the 10th of January. Unlike this whistleblower whose name we don't know, a real State Department whistleblower sent a letter, and there's a link in that. If you follow that link, don't pull it up, Jason, in the interest of time. People can follow that, go to that FBI Vault file page, scroll down it, you'll get to the letter. It's very detailed. We've done multiple shows about this. And it's a letter direct to Comey, basically saying we've got a problem in the State Department because it's being run crookedly by Hillary Clinton and by Barack Obama, who say to us, in so many words I'm summarizing, that, the Constitution be damned. We interpret the Constitution. We're telling you that this is constitutional. We're going to, rape and pillage and steal as much money as we want because we decide what the Constitution says. And the Constitution, for us, it's not a suicide pact, it's a self-enrichment pact. It helps the Clintons get rich, then it'll help the Obamas get rich, and whoever follows Hillary Clinton when she's president will help them get rich. That's in essence what this person was saying to Dopey James Comey in a lengthy letter, citing chapter and verse, which is redacted, that letter, even now. So the FBI can look at it, and they must know there's evidence, there's attachments. This whistleblower was prepared on the 10th of January, 2016 to go right into a skiff and say, here it is, corruption central. We got to stop this. And that's at a time when the public could have known the truth.
Could have made a difference.
It could have made a huge difference. And again, Bernie could have been the nominee. So what does Comey do? It's like, I'm not in that business. I'm in the business of covering up this shit. Of course I'm not going to respond to that letter. So the guy or woman comes into this, guy, I guess, he identifies himself.
Picture him in his office assembling a Lego Millennium Falcon.
That's right.
Come in with this letter. He's like, can't you see I'm busy?
So the 27th of January 2016, the dude walks into the State Department unannounced and says, hey, come on now.
No response.
What the hell? And so...
Persistent, huh?
And the person who was leading the investigation of the mishandling leaves on the 1st of February 2016, and McCabe goes in as deputy on the 1st of February 2016. I mean, the FBI would have the ability to really, I mean, how many whistleblower complaints come in about cabinet level people? There must be a history of that. In the State Department, where there's so much money flooding around the world, there's no inspector general. How many different people would have complained in the 200 different countries where we have consulates or representation? Surely there's some honest people in the State Department, and some of them have said, wait a minute, there are pallets of cash landing at the airport and disappearing, and you don't have an inspector general, and the policy doesn't seem to be going so well, and the Clintons are collecting mansions. And she's getting ready to run for president. This stinks.
Yeah.
So, interestingly, and I was looking at this to fill in a different timeline we're going to go through, but it turns out that Tom Fitton's Judicial Watch filed a request on the 31st of March 2016, a lawsuit demanding the 302, the interview transcript for the interview that the FBI did on the 18th of December 2008, probably around the time of that picture of Jim Jones and Hillary Clinton or whatever, when the FBI interviewed Obama and others concerning the alleged attempt by Blagojevich to sell Obama's Senate seat to the highest bidder. I think those interview notes would be very interesting. And I think, at this point, it's 11 years later, what the hell? And the fact that Judicial Watch would file this lawsuit would make, if I were Obama and his people, would make me only more interested in helping Hillary Clinton win. So I think, getting to the bottom of what was the back and forth, who responded to this lawsuit, who knew about this lawsuit, who knew about the 302, and if it's Peter Strzok who was interviewing Obama back in 18 December 2008, I doubt it was, but who interviewed him? Mueller was head of the FBI back then. Who did that? What did they find out? Okay, remember I said the 2nd of May 2016 is when that Politico piece came out. It happened to be the same day that the great Thomas Lifson, who runs the American Thinker, did a blog post noticing that I was starting to drop something on my website concerning the Clinton Foundation. That what I dropped ended up getting picked up by Zero Hedge on May 7th. And so this is right in the period where people are flying to England, communicating with England, where we're starting to see these interview notes coming back and the emails coming back and forth, as a suspicion, as a guess. Not just me, really, but people who are beginning to ask the tough questions about the Clinton Foundation were having an impact inside the FBI and the IRS, which had opened, in theory, the FBI had opened an investigation in January of 2016, and the IRS opened an investigation by July 2016 into the Clinton Foundation. Some of this work must have been causing a ruckus, and one would like to see the internal emails and notes and whatever inside the FBI now, which probably will say, we got to stop this shit from coming out. We know that the stuff came out here. If we hit this one here, just this one link here, this is a special set of, a special dump on what happened. Is that the actual? Yeah, there, if you get. And when you go through, don't open up, Jason, just in the interest of time.
When was that released, Charles?
A while back. but last year, if not even before then, but what it talks about here, it's interesting. It's not, the tone of it was not, we got to get to the bottom of what Loretta Lynch and Bill Clinton were talking about. The tone of this back and forth, there's a lot of press clippings and a lot of, who leaked this out?
Yeah.
And to me, the idea that the president of, we're talking here about how it's so improper for Donald Trump to have Joe Biden investigated for actual straight-up unprosecuted crimes dating back over decades.
Which
that's
there's
wrong.
Evidence coming out about it every day without an investigation.
Right. That's wrong. But it's okay for the former president of the United States, to have an accidental meeting in June 27th. It was hot as hell in Phoenix at that point. In an airplanes in a hangar, and talk for 30 minutes with the Attorney General of the United States, who sits over top investigations into Hillary Clinton for mishandling, and was in a position, had Hillary won, to be very happy to be continued on as Attorney General, or maybe to be a Supreme Court Justice. This is unbelievably outrageous that this meeting occurred at all, and then that the correspondence between these, among the people in the Justice and the FBI would be, how did this get out? I thought we had this covered. I mean, who would have leaked this? It should have been, my God, we're going to all resign unless Loretta Lynch leaves.
Yeah.
I mean, she should not have taken that meeting.
How are your grandkids? It'd be a shame if anything happened to them.
Right, exactly.
He's like the Bubba father.
That's right.
Bill Clinton is such a schmuck. So hopefully he'll go to jail pretty soon, Charles.
Yeah. I think he's going to take the easy way out. Now, the September 7th, 2016, this is really interesting. If we hit the link here, and far be it from me to rely on Snopes, and I'm not, but there was Matt Lauer, the not so dearly departed Matt Lauer.
They're making an HBO or an Apple show seemingly similar to Matt Lauer's situation.
He's a weasel. I mean, he's one of these people, you see these type of people on the streets in New York. I remember I ran into him. You know how you can walk across Park Avenue, you get stuck in the median?
Yep.
And I got stuck in the median with somebody who looked a hell of a lot like this weasel, who I think was this weasel.
Really?
Yeah. And, but anyway, back in 2016, he did have these commander-in-chief forum where he asked Donald Trump questions and he asked Hillary Clinton questions.
Yeah, I remember that.
And the allegation here is that Hillary Clinton was really upset because that Lauer had peppered her with questions that were not approved questions, and that she threw a temper tantrum and blah, blah, blah. Snopes is saying this is false. And they probably are saying that because there's some element in the account that is not 100% correct. But looking, we have in Donna Brazile somebody who admitted giving the Clinton camp the debate questions in advance of the debate. Hillary Clinton is the kind of person who's gotten ahead in life by always having the answers to the exam questions and the answers before the test. Right. We all know people like that.
Cheaters.
And yeah, cheaters. You got to save them.
Save the cheaters.
Yeah. So it would not surprise me that this was true. I mean, we've seen when Hillary Clinton snaps, everybody has a temper. I have a temper, actually, as well. It takes a lot to set me off. And when you do, then I start doing 2-hour podcasts, maybe 191 of them, until I get tired of doing them. But anyway, this is...
Oh, wait. Is this Scaramucci sitting right here?
That does look a little bit like him.
It looks exactly like him. What is the mooch doing sitting there?
I don't know. But anyway, so the significance of this date, though, this is just when the Zero Hedge piece, if you go back into the slide, the next day, this thing comes out, and this is roughly 60 days before the election, almost to the date. The 60-day rule, you're not supposed to meddle in the election.
That's
the unofficial rule, right.
We've been meddling with it the whole time. Oh, don't do anything in the last 60 days. Yeah. We've got it all set.
So, and then we think about, remember I told you the Clinton Global Initiative is a fraud. Well, what happened on the 19th of September 2016? You have the 12th annual meeting of something that only started in 2009. Right? How do you have a 12th annual meeting of something that started in 2009?
They're that good, Charles. You get 12 in the time frame that most people can only do one.
Right, annual though.
Yeah.
And then but look at this link here. It's really interesting. The one below it.
Oh, sorry. This one?
Yeah. Okay, this should take us, here's the actual agenda. And, when you think about what happened with, stop for a second, with Epstein and Weinstein, harnessing the power of girls and women for sustainable development. Yeah, I'll bet that's what they want to talk about. Keep on going down.
That's beyond equality.
Partnering for global prosperity, AKA Hillary's going to be president of the United States, and if you want to get ahead, here's where you send the check.
Right. Can you imagine the pretension at this event?
Oh, that's stunning. Africa, that's a place we're going to rape. Let's talk about that. Networking event. Family foundations. Funny that you'd want to talk about those.
How to destroy them.
Oh, man.
Gender equality.
Equity, yeah.
Unless we don't like your story, then you're minimized.
Then you're Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah. So at this event, Juanita Broderick will not be admitted.
That's right. Impact investing, yes.
That's what happens when you throw someone out the back of a 727.
That's right.
The impact.
These are all CGI idea exchange. Oceans, those would be places where you're beyond national law and we can do whatever we want.
What happened to the Terramar project?
It was discussed, I believe, in one of these things. Refugees, those we want to go to places where there are a lot of refugees because they're not going to complain about what we do to them.
Right.
Yeah. Rural communities, same deal, no one goes there. Right. United States, you can forget about that, we'll get rid of that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's succeeding you look at this in hindsight. I mean, this is written by 7th graders.
Yeah.
And what is COP 21?
Sounds like Agenda 21.
But I think if at the maybe this one or at the very end, there's a picture of the participants. Oh. If we keep on going down, let's just see at the very end.
No. View next day?
No, just up here a little bit.
Sorry. I think I might have hit view next day by accident. Let me go back. Did it go?
Yeah, right up here. Here we go. The Clinton Global Citizens Awards. John Bon Jovi gets an award.
Really?
He deserves that, yeah. Andrea Bocelli, he probably deserves it. Amon, the actor. The Voices of Haiti. That's rich.
They hate her.
Who?
Everyone I've ever met from Haiti hates Hillary Clinton.
Oh, yeah.
They know.
Well, so if we go back into the next... now look at the final page. Here's the sponsors. This is a list of the sponsors of the Clinton Global Initiative. Now, how many charities do you know that have sponsors of the caliber that we're going to see in a second here? I mean, you're not supposed to be a sponsor. I don't know who Ambassador Gianna Angelopoulos is. I have never heard of the Hult International Business School. I have heard of the Starkey Hearing Foundation.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact is, stop for a second, Bill Clinton is paid by paid money.
Tremendous sum, isn't it?
Not tremendous, but by the Starkey Hearing Foundation. It's not disclosed in anything other than the filings of Starkey. Then you have these very famous foundations, the Ford Foundation, Rockefeller. The United Postcode Lottery is a fraud. It's a for-profit operation that pays money to the Clinton Foundation. The Varkey Foundation is another. There's the Starkey Foundation and the Varkey Foundation. I forget which one. Slow down for a second there. Now we have meeting partners. What is Cisco and Microsoft and
maybe they're
a utility?
Providing the technology for it.
We'll keep on going though. Procter and Gamble, and then you've got Bill and Melinda Gates. We know they don't do any diligence on the Clinton Foundation. I don't know what Delos is. Hewlett Packard, the Inter-American Development Bank. More to that later. But what the hell is McDonald's doing sponsoring?
They're loving it.
Western Union moving money.
Yeah.
And then a drink company.
APCO. Holy crap. So APCO Worldwide is connected to Kordakovsky and Bill Browder. It's Jonathan Weiner. Lee Stranahan was just talking about APCO Worldwide, and Diageo is the liquor company that bought George Clooney's booze for $1 billion. And jive is what this whole damn thing is.
That's right. No, that would be smack.
Yeah. You remember Airplane where they said, excuse me, miss, I speak jive. She starts talking to the guys. Oh,
and by the way, this is Clinton Foundation. That's not the real name. They don't have that fictitious name in New York. That's not its legal address. It's probably not his telephone. I mean,
1633 Broadway. Wait a minute. That's very near that office building where they have the Mars restaurant. There's some printing company building. I've been to 1633 Broadway. You and I have never visited there.
We're unlikely to go to the 5th floor.
Is that where they're supposed to be?
That's what it says.
5th floor. Interesting.
If we just, because we're moving along. All right, and so we've talked about this before, but for people who haven't watched our previous shows, this is interesting. This is this memo that surfaces after the fact, but it's dated the 3rd of October, 2016. Okay? If you hit page 2, there are only 2 pages here. Yeah. And if we can make it a little bigger, yeah. All right. Just putting this on the record because of the optics of this case. So at 7 p.m. on October 3rd. I encountered approximately at least 340,000 emails stored on the computer of Anthony Weiner and Uma Abedin.
BTW.
By the way, is there an election coming up? Could this be relevant?
I don't bother anybody, but
about this, I did. Of course, it says a significant number of these appeared to be between Uma Abedin and Hillary Clinton. Now remember, she'd given 60,000 emails were all of the emails.
Why, of course, it's neither of their computer.
Right.
It's like Anthony Weiner, of course, the majority of the emails are from Anthony Weiner.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense.
And it says, now of course, because I was well trained by James Comey, I did not review content of these emails.
Right.
Wouldn't do that.
Why investigate?
Yeah, I shouldn't do that. Yeah. That's the Federal Bureau of we don't do shit. Right. And maybe there was a legal limitation. The warrant may not have, that went to get the laptop may have not, been written in a way to allow them to review these emails. But nonetheless, October 3rd, did nobody with a half a brain understand by October 3rd that there was a very, very serious problem here? Or alternatively, did the people protecting Hillary Clinton look at this and say, are you kidding me? What are you sending me this type of memo for? We've been trying to cover this crap up. And by the way, it's not 340,000 emails. It's more like 650,000 because you didn't see all the emails yet. I mean, I'm just making this part of it up. But, I mean, this to me, this has been floating out there. I forget when this is, we might, if you go up the page a little bit, it might.
This is the alleged frazzle drip laptop.
Is that what it's called?
I mean, there's apparently something on there that is frazzle drip.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, and that sounds like something James Comey would build in a Star Wars. I don't know, I don't see a date.
Yeah, so we don't yet know when this, some experts might be able to tell. Sometimes it says at the top, released on such and such date.
10/5/2016.
But you notice it says case ID, unsub is Anthony Weiner.
Unsub is an unknown subject.
Or well, then what's you? Ugly?
I don't know.
But the topic is producers of child pornography on this laptop.
Oh, but what's redacted underneath this producers of child pornography?
I don't
know.
Well,
that's the frazzle drip, is the child pornography.
Yeah.
How come we haven't seen this? I mean, this is, 2
We did a
years
show.
ago.
We did a show on this.
No, I mean, how come we haven't seen the contents of the Weiner laptop? They've had it. The cops have had it. The FBI has had it. Conceivably, William Barr could say what's on that laptop and just start arresting people.
It's an unusual collection of coincidences.
It is, isn't it?
Perfect storm of screw-ups.
Right.
Right. Anyway, so this is we're looking back over the 2016 period and we're saying, do we know the whole story? And the answer is, of course, we don't. Does it seem, if we go back to the slide, does it seem as if people assiduously tried to get the bottom in 2016 and what was really going on with the Clinton Foundation? Of course not. So let's go to the next page. Well, a fair question is, when did the Clinton machine decide they were going to rig the 2015-16 period?
1983.
So, yeah, right. Try like 1946 or when they were born or whatever. So you and I have been down to the office that doesn't exist. In July of 2011, we know that Dennis Cheng started working in this office at 77 Water Street. And for the hell of it, let's hit his LinkedIn, because I know we like to do that.
He loves the London School of Economics.
He still loves that. Definitely still loves that. I'm amazed. Oh,
whoops.
I was able to get in without.
Yeah,
People who have LinkedIn can go ahead and do it, but it's hilarious because
I'm just logged out is what the problem is.
Oh, well, don't waste time on it. People can go back and do it themselves, but when you do that, he's basically, and you look at it with a jaundiced eye. Here's a young person catapulted into a high position, raising money for a Senate campaign, and then into the deputy protocol officer of the State Department. And this guy is sent July 2011 while she's still Secretary of State, and while they're milking the world for money for the Clinton Foundation. Oh, that's well done. So if you go down, you see he's still bragging. He's Hillary for America, bubonic plague for America.
Right.
He's been at this since April 2015, bubonic plague for America. But Clinton Foundation Chief Development Officer, July through February 2015, right? And this important job here.
Department of State.
Right, and Finance Director, New York Region, Hillary for President, Friends of Hillary, right?
Not good.
Not good at all.
Swarthmore.
And who the hell is this guy? Where did he go to high school? What are his origins? How has he been such a loyal friend of the Clintons? He looks quite young today. I mean, imagine how young he was when he got involved in 2004 and 5 helping Hillary out.
Yeah, I don't know. Not my kind of guy.
Yeah. So we go back in for a sec. Now this is, we've talked about this one before. The first, in July of 2011, Hillary certainly had her eyes peeled on the idea of being president of the United States again. She wasn't going to take on Barack Obama, I don't think, in a re-elect challenge.
2012, you mean?
And to do that, she would have to prepare by July 2011. She'd have to raise money and get.
But I think she already was on her plan B of being Secretary of State and causing havoc that way.
Right, and she wanted to steal as much money as possible for the foundation. But they probably said, we better look ahead here and dry clean this stuff, and let's get a law firm in to look at what's going on here. And so if you hit that link, the Wikipedia link. WikiLeaks link. No, above it. Yeah. This is interesting, and we'll fly through this. We're over time, but we really will fly through these slides. This is interesting for several reasons. I don't want you to, at this point, pick up any of these emails, but it's interesting because I misspelled the name of Simpson Thatcher, and these emails come up. And
really?
We've done this before, and what they show in 2008 are a lot of preparation meetings for Barack Obama, which is right, to be doing. That they assumed he was going to win. They're trying to, stand up a government. You look at these big names involved, and if the FBI wanted to actually do any homework on this, you really need to pull apart. And we've got a final page on whether the Clintons. Or how badly did the Clintons entrap the Obamas during this crucial period as the election loomed in 2008 and then in the...
That U on FBI documents means unclassified. Thank you, Artemis.
Okay. But so you see that there are signs of these meetings. We'll get back to that in a second. But then we have, don't hit this, but this is, let me think. No, this one here. Wednesday debrief. AJ66 at NYU.ed is Chelsea Clinton.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And this is the Simpson-Thatcher investigation started October 27th.
Why AJ66?
I don't know.
66 is a lot like 33, and it's the age that Epstein is when he's dying, and interesting choice. Why does she need AJ66?
I don't know.
Is she June 6th is her birthday?
No.
I don't know why she needs 66.
Well, and more to the point, if you're going to be in a high position at the Clinton Foundation with a fancy office paid for by the Clinton Foundation, you should. I mean, good governance practice would be we're only supposed to do Clinton Foundation business. You should use a Clinton Foundation official email. Of course, none of these people do that. But on the 20th of November, 2011, there's this back and forth, and you see there's a bunch of these emails of how to arrange a debrief of Simpson-Thatcher in Chappaqua. What have they found in their initial 3-week or so study of the Clinton Foundation? Of course, you don't want to put those initial findings in writing, because those would be, which one of you wants to go to jail for wire fraud? All the ones who want to go to wire fraud, you stand over there, bank fraud over there, charity fraud over there. So they arranged to have this debrief. And the back and forth and all that is, I think, by accident, they misspell in the subject line. So I don't think they're smart enough to say, we really want to bury this one. So if we're going to avoid, inquiries, Freedom of Information Act requests or whatever, we will misspell the name and that way, when you ask.
I don't think they're not clever enough to do that.
Well, maybe.
I think they're well clever enough to do that.
But so people want to read this just to see what I'm talking about. But very clearly, now that we know the whole background here, Simpson-Thatcher was brought in before the 2012 election. Leans Democratic, that firm, and although it's all over the world, but the power base is here in New York. Very stuck into New York state government and federal government, the IRS and elsewhere. So they were brought in to handle this mess and to try to help make sure that Mitt Romney did not win, was not able in 2012 to use the Clinton Foundation as a whipping boy, the way Donald Trump did in 2016, is my working theory. So if we go back into the slide, let's see. This is another one. I'll quickly do this one. This is Nick Confessor.
Great name.
Yeah, and he's too smart. He's another young guy who I think was, if you hit an MOU from the Wayback Machine, all right, and you hit the attachment, the New York Times had gotten a hit, if we hit that, the New York Times had gotten wind of trouble at the Clinton Foundation. So Nick was sick.
The Honorable who?
Let's think. This was Grassley, I think. But we've seen this before. This was a transmittal letter that Kerry and someone else sent of the MOU back in 2008. And so people in the Clinton camp arranged to send this to Nick Confessor, so that he'll have the background of understanding, how the Obama administration was taking pains to regulate interactions between the federal government and the Clinton Foundation. But if we go through this quickly, just scroll through it, the signature page, those of us we've seen this before, what Confessor gets is the forgery. He gets one with a handwritten, I think the date there is forged 12/16/2008, when it really was 11/16/08. So Nick Merrill, who sends this thing over to Nick Confessor, I think it was Nick Merrill, I may have that wrong, but anyway, the Clinton operative who sends this to the New York Times is jobbing the New York Times already.
Doing what?
Because if Nick Confessor is pretty smart, took the time to ask himself, how could Valerie Jarrett sign and Bruce Lindsay signed something on November 16th, 2008, a Sunday? How did Valerie Jarrett know enough about the Clinton Foundation to know that this would work? And by the way, Hillary Clinton wasn't even publicly selected to be Secretary of State until the end of November. So why would they have signed this MOU on the 16th of November, 2008? It's clearly a con job that they...
Well, and just sorry to interrupt, Charles, but for anyone who's watching who hasn't seen this document before, who might be thinking you're just making this up, we have looked at another document with basically pixel for pixel the exact same signature and date that does say November 16th, 2008. Where was that document? 'Cause clearly they just added the two over the one.
You want us? We can digress and pick it up. If you just Google Clinton-Obama MOU Judicial Watch, you will get to that document. So Judicial Watch was provided the real MOU in December of 2013.
Who's better than you, Charles? Because here it is. Now, let me see if I can line this up just so. And what we will do is so everyone watching at home, almost perfect. But there we see 11:16. I'm telling you, if you look at this little hook on the line here, what I'm doing is, for the people who are watching at home, we're toggling back and forth between the documents, and it's very clear to see that this is almost certainly a forgery based on this very document.
Right, and there would be many reasons to cover this up. I mean, if Nick Confessor in the New York Times, I'm sorry to be this crude, gave a shit, it didn't follow the Bloomberg News doctrine of we can't investigate Democrats, that might allow the truth to get out. If you cared about this, you would be asking a lot of questions. And you see how Confessor in the New York Times peppers Trump with questions. I mean, you'd be saying, wait a minute, how in the hell did this come together? What was the reason? I guess, the reason for having things happen is something that the other side doesn't care too much about, right? There's no reason to investigate Donald Trump. He's an asshole. We're just going to investigate him. There's no reason to ask these type of questions. So, we're not. I mean, there's an excellent reason to wonder why Valerie Jarrett, a day or two into the role of being, the senior person directing the Obama-Biden transition, how could she possibly have known the terms of this supposed MOU, especially recognizing that at this point in time in 2008, the Clinton Foundation's a disaster. They hadn't filed by November 16th, 2000. They didn't have an audit done.
Charles, this is such an important piece of evidence, not only for what it says about this very document, but for the modus operandi of this crew. As we scrutinize these two documents, the original and the forgery, we start to get a handle, like I'm looking at this and I'm seeing digital techniques that were used. The 11/16/08, of course, was the source, right? So it's much thicker, solid lines. When we look at the 12/16 forgery, it looks to me like someone scanned this document, easily created an alpha channel out of it, extracted the text, and that made the lines a bit rougher, as we can see here. They don't look quite so solid. I'd like to zoom in on it a bit more, but this is absolutely a forgery. So many distinctive characteristics of each stroke, there's no doubt in my mind. And if this is the same crew that created Barack Obama's birth certificate, here's the technique right there.
Right.
Well done, Charles.
So, thank you. So, they misdirect the New York Times. Of course, the New York Times is in their hip pocket. They misdirect the entire world. Nobody's asking, Hillary Clinton leaves Secretary of State February 1st, 2013, with all this property, all his emails, whatever. She only turns over some of them by the 5th of December. New York Times flags the use of the private server March 2nd. I do my story on March 16th. Hillary Clinton, now, and bear in mind, I do this, my first story, before Hillary Clinton officially announced. So you could say I'm a partisan hack. I didn't vote in 2016, but I got on this because I did appreciate the political significance of it, or what I thought was the political significance of it, but I wasn't doing this primarily for political reasons, but to expose a massive fraud. So she announces, a private attorney says to Comey, hey, Comey, you really should investigate the Clinton Foundation. He's like, I'm not doing that. And then Bill O'Reilly says it the next day. Marsha Blackburn is one of the very few people in Congress who stood up and did something about this Clinton Foundation. And her staff actually reached out to me. I spent a lot of time with them in 2016 in particular. They did fantastic work, but she demands an investigation. The IRS says, F that. The suspicious IG of the intelligence community announces or refers an investigation into mishandling on July 6th. The FBI finally opens one on the 10th. And let's think about this for a second. Perkins Coie negotiates their crooked deal that we talked about to control, for the Hillary Clinton campaign, to control the DNC in August of 2015. Now think of the chutzpah that's involved here. Here's Hillary Clinton under investigation by the Inspector General, by the FBI. She's under investigation by the FBI for mishandling classified information during her only period of high executive office leadership as Secretary of State. The only senior position she's handled, she's under an active FBI investigation for it. So on the one hand, she's confident she's got the FBI game, she's got Comey and the people around Comey under control. She's so confident that she goes out and she uses a law firm, Perkins Coie, to negotiate and enter into an agreement with the DNC to basically rig the Democratic primaries, is the way I look at it. You know, this takes balls.
It seems to be the way they go, Charles. The more trouble they're in, the bolder they act to make it seem like they're not in trouble. Comey does that, McCabe does that, Hillary does that, Bill does that.
And by the way, in August of 2015 until September 10th, 2015, Hillary Clinton is one of 3 Class A, which sounds nice, but you can't have a Class A director in a public charity.
What does that mean, Class A director?
Class A director is, think of it as a director with superpowers. So Class B directors, you're there, you're just showing up at meetings, but you got no power to do anything. The way they tried to set this up, Class A directors were Bill, Hillary, and Chelsea. They controlled a public charity, which you're not allowed to do lawfully. But when you game New York State, and you game California, and you game the IRS, and you game the Department of Justice, you do what you want is the lesson. Right. But as she's obstructing the criminal investigation into her mishandling and rigging the Democratic primaries, she is also illegally controlling a vast enterprise that masquerades as a charity, but in fact is a string of slush funds scattered all over the world. Right? And this is somebody who nearly became President of the United States, and today is waiting in the wings, thinking when the clown show trips up all over itself, that she will be brought in to accolades to be the candidate in 2020. But I mean, what we know through all these podcasts, but just on this page, it tells you there are no grown-ups in the Democratic Party. There's nobody who could stand up and say, listen, Hillary, and Bill and Chelsea, enough of this. Right. We're not, this is Arkansas on steroids, and we're not doing this.
Yeah, I mean, they're yesterday's news. They're destroying I guess it's too late, but credibility in the Democratic Party.
Right. So we go to the next page. We're going back in time. So how the hell does this Obama Foundation come together? And I don't feel bad about what I'm going to do here, because I warned the Obama Foundation. I warned the top legal person at the Obama Foundation in 2000, late in 17, early in 18, that they had to change. And they did not listen to me, so now I will, do what I have to do. So the Clinton Foundation, in theory, on the 11th of December, approved a merger of itself with this slush fund, the Clinton Global Initiative, that didn't legally exist anywhere. Right? They approved it in 2012. They may have approved it again on the 28th of January 2013. Hillary Clinton leaves the State Department. They changed the name of a public charity. Its original name was the William J. Clinton Presidential Foundation. They should have kept that name, to now become the Bill, Hillary, and Chelsea Clinton Foundation, giving the appearance to the public at large that the family controlled this thing, that it was theirs, when it wasn't. It's a public charity. And that's a deceptive trade practice, I think, in Arkansas and in many states. They did not register the various names properly anywhere. They've never, in New York State, registered, the key state here, or filed in compliance with law. And about a month later, word leaks out that the IRS under Obama might just have targeted conservatives. And by targeted, it's not like small thing. I mean, they went after, you apply the rules as loosely as they've applied against the Clinton Foundation, put on, Satan as the counterpart, and that's this satanic persecution of conservatives. If you put your file in and it's the paper's a little bit off color, or the ink isn't dry properly, or and you get a request for a list of every single potential donor to your foundation and their home address and their this and their that, and They start getting audited. I mean, the way in which they let the Clinton Foundation skate but persecute conservatives is a tale that's still, again, this contrast that we talk about. It's got to be told and investigated fully. So that happens on a Friday. That leaks out on a Friday. On Monday, the Justice Department announces Rod Rosenstein's, because he was the central guy, one of the central guys, $500 million fines and penalties against Ranbaxy, when I think the appropriate thing would have been to shut that company down.
But isn't it in India? How can he do that?
Its biggest customer is the U.S. market.
Just block them from selling anything in the U.S.?
You just shut them down in this country. I mean, they could have tortured Ranbaxy. They had enormous leverage against Ranbaxy, which at this point had been purchased by a Japanese company that had other big interests. So they could have been much more aggressive in my view, but they weren't. So then on the 29th, remember how I've talked in the past about if you want to create a charity, Jason Goodman and Charles Hertel and the audience, 3 or 4 people in the audience, we can't get together and say, we're going to, create the High Times charity, Project 420.
Nice, I'm in.
and the first thing we do is we go better get that domain name, Project 420.
And then just start collecting money
off the internet. But that's what the Obama Foundation did. They collect this domain name on the 29th of October 2013. There is no Barack Obama Foundation at this point, no legal entity. So who decided to get this name? And you can look for yourselves and see what I'm talking about. Then Bob Bauer, the same Bob Bauer who had been White House counsel, the same Bob Bauer who resigned the day his colleague came back from the trip to Hawaii with an electronic record of Barack Obama's birth certificate, that guy incorporates the Barack Obama Foundation, but he calls it Barack Obama Foundation without the "the," on the 31st of January 2014. Now, Jason, we've talked about this before. A lawyer filing paperwork in Washington, D.C. to incorporate an entity is not organizing it. He did not organize it. Directors did not come together and create a real entity on the 31st of January 2014. They didn't register in any other states. No bylaws were signed by that point. And then on the 19th of March, Bauer again, acting alone, so no trustees were formally involved in this, changes the name from Barack Obama Foundation to the Barack Obama Foundation. And, on the heels of the Clinton Foundation, with its many name changes to have entities that sort of sound like they're the real thing when they're not the real thing, this has all the hallmarks of a fraud in development. It's the fraud development initiative of the Democratic Party. Why did you do this? Bob Barr can't say, well, I didn't know, I'm not a lawyer. He's a lawyer. He was White House counsel. He was a partner at a serious firm. He had to know that these actions...
Bob Barr?
Bob Bauer.
Bauer.
Had to... I mumble, especially after 2.5 hours of this,
Sorry.
but excuse me. And so they had not organized this thing. They file a false and materially misleading application for federal tax exemption on the 27th of June. They execute an agreement with a fundraising agent on the 27th of June, but using a Chicago-based address for this entity, but they don't register in Illinois until the 9th of July, 2014.
Yeah.
Now, why would I say it's false and materially misleading? A public charity is not supposed to consist of the moneyed interests that got you elected to your various positions based in Illinois, who blindly follow you, and your stepsister. That's not a public charity.
Who's stepsister?
Obama's stepsister.
Who is that?
Maya Sotero Eng or whatever it is.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean...
she's in that picture of him when he's a little kid, right?
She's on the board of this thing. I mean,
Wow.
this is not a public charity. A public charity should be... I think in future when we do this, if they do the Trump Foundation, Presidential Foundation, it's got to include a percentage of independents, a percentage of Democrats, a percentage of Republicans. It cannot be the Trump family,
No.
Jared Kushner,
Right.
and who knows who else, Jeanine Pirro. I like Jeanine Pirro. I mean, it's got to be, if you're going to have a presidential foundation,
Barron.
it's a public, Barron, and
He's like 17 feet tall. He came out of the helicopter. I was like, wasn't this guy a little kid? He's taller than Trump.
I know, he's big. Well, a lot of those kids are people in the family.
But
big.
he's like 13. How old is he? He's incredibly tall.
That happens, though. You spurt up at 13, 14. So they file, they execute this agreement in Chicago where they know no one's going to catch them using an address that's not registered. Then they don't register properly in Illinois, and then they don't register properly in New York. And nonetheless, the IRS says, Lois Lerner may be gone, but we haven't weaned ourselves off of our wicked ways. Of course you could be a public charity. No problem. If this is raising money for Barack Obama, you do whatever you want. And if you go down the page a little bit here, the final entry, it's not until January of this year that they file a registration for this entity to raise money to operate in New York State. Right? They forgot about this collection of lawyers. I mean, the number of lawyers that are involved with these screwed up operations, whether it's Schiff's investigation, Mueller, Weissman, Obama, Clinton. I mean, it's almost as if they're proving by their actions that the reason you go to law school is because you want to waste 3 years and somebody else is going to pay for it and nobody's going to check, because everything these people seem to do with regard to these very important charities is all wrong. Now, why do we think that Barack Obama would put up with this? Right? I mean, this is after Hillary has left Secretary of State. It's clear she's going to be running for president in 15, 16, though she doesn't announce. Barack Obama needs his money-raising vehicle. And as a guess, people say, they did it. Look what they got away with. You're a global brand, man. You're going to get all kinds of money. You've got to have your own thing. And so let's get your public charity up and running, because nobody's going to check it. And then Trump happens.
Right.
And then New York State goes aggressively after Trump over $2 million issues and $25 million issues. Yeah.
Money-making vehicle, Charles.
Right.
This thing is crazy.
It is.
But we'll see what happens with that. Now, I know we still have, I think, one more page, no?
I'll go through it quickly. So the real question here, and when I look, I regard most things that I get involved with as akin to mystery novels. There's an answer. In every mystery novel, there's an answer. And you get to that answer by considering the motivations of the actors involved. And where there's a hole in the story that doesn't make sense, you mark that down and you say, it's not that I can never understand it, it's just I'm missing a key piece of information that if I got that key piece of information, it would give you the aha moment. And so why might Barack Obama put up with all this crap?
Payday at the end of the line.
Well, and also...
he's roped into it.
And also, people tell him that they won't go down certain alleys that would be very embarrassing to him. So let's go through this a little bit more carefully.
Yes.
On the 5th of June, 2008, and again, we don't have to pull up the links, we have the famous meeting in Dianne Feinstein's mansion in Washington, D.C., involving Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. And 13 days after that, now this could be a complete coincidence that, it's difficult to run it down. Maybe people who know how to do this will help us. Somebody registers the domain name secretaryclinton.com on the 18th of June, 2008. Now that could be somebody who's a secretary in somebody else's office who wanted the name Secretary Clinton. But this is way before there was any talk of Hillary Clinton being part of an Obama administration. Indeed, it's, there's still tense relations between Obama and Hillary. And again, this may just be a complete coincidence and, like Barr's coincidences.
Yeah.
Right?
So she hasn't been selected yet, but she's already getting the webpage?
Well, somebody got it. Now, I don't know that it's she, I don't know that it's her people, but somebody registers this on the 18th of June, which is approximately 5.5 months before the public learns that she's going to be Secretary of State.
It's registered with something called Wild West Domains.
Yeah.
I've not heard of that.
Yeah. So then on the 10th of November, the election happens. Obama wins by a country mile. And the 10th of November, we have the famous memo. You don't need to bring it up because we've done it before, but if people want to look at it later, this is a memo that surfaces right before the 2016 election. It's very interesting that it came out several days before the 2016 election. I saw it immediately and read it carefully and talked about it, I think, on Fox or elsewhere. And I mean, it was brutal. This memo, when you look at it, it just deals with New York. It's by a lawyer who understands New York law, and it basically says,
Gibson, right?
yeah, we're basically fucked, is what it says in so many words. That's the part that was published. Who knows what wasn't in the memo and was taken out by people who said, you can't put that in the memo. So Jarrett signed 6 days later, Jarrett and Lindsay. This thing here on the 10th of November is addressed to Lindsay, saying, Bub, you're screwed. The Clinton Foundation's in horrible shape. And the 16th, Lindsay says to Valerie Jarrett, you don't know anything about the Clinton Foundation. You obviously are not going to see this memo. We're just going to say the Clinton Foundation is great, and why don't you sign that? And she does.
Registrant name is Zygmunt Sapansky, Power Business Associates, Capo Beach, California.
Yeah. I mean, it could be that he just saw this opportunity, or was it done on behalf of the Clintons? We don't know yet.
Power Business Associates, Inc.
Yeah. So Jarrett signs the MOU on the 16th. The next day, there's a letter from the Obama transition team, co-chaired by Jarrett, providing points of contact to Blagojevich and his team the next day, right? And remember, Blagojevich is thinking, how can I monetize my right to appoint the successor to Barack Obama? So they have a meeting in Philadelphia where Biden and Obama talk to Blagojevich. I mean, to be a fly on the wall in that meeting, right? And the next day, Obama says sends a thank you note to Blagojevich saying, yeah, enjoyed the event. It's not like, it was horrible. BKD issues an absurd, incorrect audit on the 12th of December 2008, the same day as the effective date of the supposed MOU. This thing is so wrong, it doesn't even get close. It's not near the universe of correct. It's off on like the part of wherever the universe of wrong is, and they're never going to
galaxy far away.
It's so wrong.
Long ago.
Right? And then, of course, the Clintons hire a supposed something called nonprofit service corporation, which masquerades as having lawyers in it, but of course those lawyers are not qualified to practice law in the jurisdictions that matter, and they start sending letters across state lines to New York and to California and to Michigan, lying like hell. But we can't, we like to file our paperwork in your state, but we can't, we're waiting, our accountants have not completed the audit. The audit was completed on December 12th. The letters started going out December 15th. So bold lies, and my suspicion is the reason they had to do this is they could not let this audit get to the Senate because there are all sorts of representations made about the Clinton Foundation has done good work, Hillary Clinton's been involved with the Clinton Foundation. If you had to say, and in a small sidebar amendment to my previous comment, I'd just like to say it's the largest fraud ever attempted in history and has never been audited properly, as this document will attest, fellow senators. I mean, right?
They didn't say that?
They didn't. They didn't. Right?
Surprising.
So on the 18th, Obama's interviewed by the FBI, and if they got the Manafort treatment, they would have gotten to, okay, how much work have you done on this Clinton Foundation thing? How did Valerie Jarrett sign this? What exactly is Valerie Jarrett doing? What conversations did she have? She's the Chicago hack, basically.
Has she been watching the new Roseanne Barr show?
Right. This is back in 2008.
Oh, wow.
With the old Roseanne.
VHS tapes of the old show, yeah.
So on the 5th of January, interestingly, Judicial Watch announces that they have obtained certain records of contacts between Obama and Blagojevich. Now, if I'm Obama, I'm not yet sworn in, I'm a little nervous about that.
Right.
Right? And if you're Hillary Clinton and the Clintons and you got SWAT with the FBI,
you might
be saying to the Obamas, look, we don't at this stage need to dwell too much on the birth certificate issue. We've got Jerry Corsi on deck to make an issue of that with his book. For now, that we're going to instigate. For now, let's just focus on your problem with Blagojevich. And over here you've got this meeting that Barack had with the FBI in Chicago, and I'm in a position to tell you that I know Bobby Boy Mueller. and I can get Bobby Boy Mueller to make your life really difficult, or I can get him to maybe back off a little bit.
But did I just understand that you're insinuating that the Clintons somehow spurred Dr. Corsi to write the book about the birth certificate?
Yeah.
How'd they do that?
They sent people to him to say, you ought to take a look. He's talked about this probably.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So this is happening, and Hillary says, I really, I want to demonstrate my proficiency in lying. I do it regularly.
Yeah.
But this is going to be the big lie, like the super big lie. I pulled off my husband's a victim of a vast right-wing conspiracy. That got him elected. We're going to run with that playbook for the rest of our lives. Now let me go before the Senate.
Rest of our lives.
Oh, did I say that?
Yes.
Oh, my Freudian slip. So she gets up there and she tells all kinds of lies about the Clinton Foundation. And, my husband founded the Clinton Foundation. Really? That's interesting because the paperwork we have suggests that he didn't. And that point is never made clear in any of the filings that Bill actually founded it. And if he did, how come he's not a director?
That's just a little joke.
And if he did, how come he didn't explain the fact that he lost his law licenses for lying under oath in a deposition and obstructing investigations? So that's the kind of stuff you have to disclose, and he didn't. So she lies to the Senate, and then in the same instant, remember, this is this idiot, Comey, idiot, Comey, saying, of course we're going to clear Hillary Clinton. She had no intent whatsoever to mishandle classified information, though they secured the www.clintonemail.com domain name almost the minute following her testimony, being complete before the Senate Foreign Relations or whatever Senate committee it was on the 13th of January. And then Barack Obama is sworn in, and the scandal-free administration begins. And if we go to the very bottom of the page, I'm going to make a prediction that I think Donald Trump his people are so clever that they have now manipulated Team Obama into a position where they have a choice between awful and atrocious, right? Atrocious is they get together and they say, you know what? Donald Trump's an amateur. He hasn't played the ground. We're political insiders. We are now going to fight Donald Trump. We're going to join forces with the Clintons and we're going to fight Donald Trump. That course of action will lead to devastation for the Obamas. It's not going to work, okay? So they have a very simple choice to make. They need to be thinking about the ways in which the Clintons belittled the Obamas in the 2007-2008 timeframe. They need to remember what happened with that New Yorker magazine cover, how that got instigated. They need to think about the ways in which the Clintons may have been leaking negative stuff about Obamas for a long period of time, and they need to suck it up, and they need to basically come forward and start singing that they had their suspicions about the Clintons, but they had no idea how corrupt the Clintons were and how evil they are, and how far the Clintons were willing to go to enrich themselves, to advance their political interests, and they got sucked up into this and made a series of bad choices, and they need to come forward with the kind of information that they could have, they certainly have, that will bury the Clintons. And on the basis that they do that, I could imagine a scenario where they're punished financially, but not in the way the Clintons are going to get punished, which is going to involve hard jail time.
I mean, I appreciate your confidence, Charles, but I think most people feel like it's unlikely that the Clintons will see jail time. I do enjoy your confidence, in fact. And I'll say, Charles, for people, it's it for the slide, yeah?
No, this is the first part. Now we'll go over the next 3 hours.
Exactly. But the point is, for people who don't speak with you daily and haven't for 2 years been interacting with you and getting off the phone with you and being like, this guy's out of his mind, and then stuff does happen the way you anticipate, and then I mention it, you say, this is what I do, predict stuff.
Well, it's not necessarily predict stuff, it's if you can see the picture, you see what's there. And
it's not prognosticating, it's analyzing.
Well, it's just saying, there's no debate that the Clintons are operating a foundation.
Right.
And there's therefore there's also no debate that there are laws on the books that do dictate what a foundation is supposed to do. So if you put two and two together and you say they admit, they brag about operating a foundation out of New York, and then you look at the laws and the rules, and you see the massive crimes that they're committing, and you see people go to jail for lesser crimes of the type that they're committing, the question is not, is this a criminal conspiracy? The question is, who will finally have the guts to stand up and tell the tale, indict these people, and convict them, and try to convict them? And I think that person, that team, is the Trump administration with its allies around the world. Now, as I say, I mean, we're in desperation mode here. And desperate people do desperate things. So, things could derail this, but I think it's certainly set up at this minute at 5:44 on Sunday, November 24th, 2019.
Wow, holy cow, the time sure flies.
It's set up to be a very interesting few weeks here.
Indeed. Well, Charles, thank you very much for that wonderful presentation today. I do want to remind everyone that the shows can't continue without viewer sponsorship. So we did get one additional sponsor during the show. So I'm back now to where we were in October. We got about a week left to make September a step forward, November a step forward. So I hope the people watching us today will join me on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. There's a ton of stuff going on this week, and we're getting close to the end of the year. So there seems to be just a quickening pace, Charles. A lot of people were commenting on Devin Nunes. It's my feeling that some of the lawsuits, actually all of the lawsuits that Devin Nunes has been bringing, are fraudulent, meaning they are not lawsuits brought with the specific intent of achieving a remedy, a cure to some injury. They are strategic lawsuits that aim to achieve a purpose that is different than what's stated in the lawsuit. And it seems to me that that purpose is increasing the financing and the funding for his campaign, which has been happening, because every lawyer who's written an article about any of these lawsuits says they're ridiculous and have virtually no hope of winning. And the other problem is Devin Nunes is a congressman. So if he doesn't like the Communications Decency Act, Section 230, and the fact that it allows people like Devin Nunes' cow to call him an idiot on Twitter without Twitter getting in trouble, he needs to propose new legislation, not bring lawsuits like any person in the United States could do. So Devin Nunes, I'm sorry, I don't think he is on point. He's standing up for Trump, but I don't trust him. He's defended Bill Browder. That makes no sense. People who like Devin Nunes because he's defending Trump need to be aware that is the #1 technique of a social engineer, is to approach you as the friend of your friend or the enemy of your enemy and gain your trust that way. I encourage people to scrutinize Devin Nunes very closely. Why didn't he stop Adam Schiff's idiotic process for being illegal? Couldn't he have started some legal process to block Adam Schiff from...
I don't know. It's out of my area.
Anyway, well, that's it for the show for today. Thanks, everybody, for watching. See you tomorrow.